the bread and butter of the industry has always been GM stuff. 3 to 4 4L6s a week was very common. It was the bread and butter of the industry. So some people, if it's not the miracle product, it's not the miracle part. You don't need the best of the best overhaul kit. You don't need anything that's magical. It's not really what you use, it's about how you do it.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Minnoxide podcast. I'm your host, Harris, aka Minnoxide, man of many automotive aspirations, and I'm here with my Ford-loving co-host.
Yep.
You're no longer in enemy territory.
No, some Ford-loving. I'm feeling the love in this garage for sure. Yeah.
And today we're here with Adam Petersen of Performance Drivetrain Solutions. And I think it's been a long time, 130 some episodes. I don't think we've had a dedicated transmission guy yet.
Nope.
I don't think we even had an EV guys, but we don't have to get into that.
Sure. Well, it'll come.
It'll come sooner or later. We have some words to say.
Yeah. But take it out on them.
I think it's about time, man. So it's funny because you actually reached out to me through my website, but looks like some of the guests we've had on from Joe DeVito, which was episode 71, and then Carl from TCP, which is 127. So some of the guys that we know.
Yeah.
So go ahead and just introduce yourself. Tell us what it is that you do, and we'll just kind of go from there.
Right. Yeah. No, it's Adam Petersen, Performance Drivetrain Solutions. Just go through transmissions for people, and it's been a labor of love. If I can't afford to do it myself for my cars, my stuff, going down the road, I'll gladly help anybody else out, get their stuff going too. So I'm part of the program. It's nice to be able to have the opportunity to help racers go faster and faster and faster. Nobody's taking power away. So,
right.
who goes slower. But
Yeah.
So year after year, after you go through these things and get them going and go through them again and see what you can fine tune here and here and here, everyone's trying to go at the nth degree and to get it done. So fractions of a second of a shift means tenths in the quarter, So there's a lot of times that you have to go through stuff to make it worthwhile to build a better product to make it work how you want it to. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Been doing it forever, but also doing not just racing stuff, but started out obviously like anybody else in the industry, just doing stock transmissions. So came to a point where brake jobs and the general repair stuff is easy. It's basic. It's easy to do. It's a lifestyle. Many people do it. I've done it for quite a while, and then all of a sudden it starts to it's just not there. I want to get to the technical aspect of something more advanced. So it's seemed natural and fitting, and had an opportunity to work for an old friend, and he was a Ford Master Tech, and he knew the ins and outs of everything. So perfect. I will sit there and listen and watch and get my hands dirty and just start learning these things. So it's been a fun ride.
Do you mostly just do performance stuff now, or do you still do some stock stuff? Or
I got one showing up here later today. It's a stock 6T70 GM transmission, transaxle. I do a lot of shops around the area, so predominantly about 30 shops. I'm kind of their transmission guy. General repair from Eau Claire area, other side of the cities, south, north, everywhere. So a lot of stuff local in the area where I can leave a spot open where all these are in the mix of getting built and whatever process. I still leave time and a spot open for one of the shops to just drop something off while the shop is, or the vehicle's hanging on the hoist. It's going to tie up their hoist for 2-3 days, or as soon as I get it done. Right. So the sooner I get it done, the sooner they have it on the road too. So a lot of this stuff, because I won't say I'm more geared towards performance, but performance is funner. Yeah. It's a lot funner stuff to build. It's more exotic. There's not a lot of parts for the factory vehicles I have to machine or make work. I mean, sometimes you have to kind of make honey out of horse shit, but it happens. And sometimes wrong parts, inferior parts. Not all the time you're going to get brand new parts from GM or Ford, Chrysler. So you have to count on like a used part. So it comes from a hard part company, and you still have to go through it and do your due diligence to make sure it works, it fits, it's used, but it's probably in better condition than the thing that they dropped off at you. So if you have to go through it and make that work, you just have to make it work, and it's got to go out the door better than obviously how it was originally. That's the whole point of rebuilding the transmission, is to make sure the power gets to the ground in an efficient manner and it's not going to fail. The goal is to make it last longer than the factory gave it to you. So a 6L80 that only goes 120,000, 160,000 miles before the converter shits the bed and the pump is out. Hopefully you use a converter that isn't going to let that happen. You use a better product than what GM gave you. And it's the whole goal. And you do it long enough and you start to realize like what parts you don't want to use, or what parts you can trust, what parts you don't want to trust, and you kind of get your own reputation for using better products or finding an aftermarket solution. Use Sonax, use Transgo, use a multitude of many other companies to actually get the job done. You have to ream a valve body, you make it better. Because the AFL valve is poor design in a 4L80. Put a different valve in it and solve that issue altogether. So have the reamers, the fixtures, and all the stuff that make it happen. So,
do you have a preference between the two then? The performance side, I take it, or? Because one's easier than the other, I'm sure.
I can get one out the door overnight. I've done many overnight overhauls.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I got a ton of parts on hand just because the common ones: 4L60s, 4L80s, 6L80s, 6L90s, 6070s. They're all.
These are like 90%. These are GM transmissions.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. It is predominantly. I mean, even for performance race stuff, performance stuff too. It's GM because it's been there forever.
Yeah.
Your PowerGlide, that came out in 1962. We're still using it. There's a brand new one right there, Deed and Bear case, but still, all these. We're using 70, 60 years old parts, 55-year-old parts for stuff that is still good today, still desired today. Some stuff needs tweaking, remachining, and adding stuff to it, but that's like the labor of love part of it. I TIG weld parts on that. I machine parts on that.
Okay.
So I mean, there's a lot of stuff to make it get a good quality product to make it work, especially for the racing industry. Granted, this is going in like a 1,000 horsepower garden tractor. It's a tractor puller.
Okay.
So 496 alcohol, naturally aspirated big block Chevy.
Huh, that's cool.
So, I think I've built like 6 or 7 for these guys. Friends of them too. They're like kind of local, but these guys are from southern Rochester area. But still, it's one of those things where you have to put a lot of labor of love into it to make it work and function and give it the best of your ability to make it work. Stock transmissions, I mean, they need to be reliable, dependable. That thing goes 300 feet. The last one I took apart, I built 10 years ago, still had the green grease in it.
Oh, really?
They never got hot, didn't solidify or melted away. It was still, there's still transmission grease that I put in there 10 years ago. It's 300 feet. It's just a full pull or whatever it is, and they're done for maybe the day, or might have 3 other pulls, but it doesn't get hot enough to even melt the stuff. So it's limited use, so you don't have to really worry about it. 4L80, this your drag week guys, these guys go out and put 2,000 miles on the thing,
right?
And it's got to work, it's got to last, it's got to stay cool. It's we're looking for dependability and longevity.
So application's huge then in your case.
Yeah.
So what's the scope of your customer base then? So is it a lot of 100,000 mile plus drivers, and then obviously you mentioned 300 feeders. I guess for your overall customer base, where do most people fall?
It's mixed. Both. It just depends. Like performance side of it is different. The general mom and pop shops. I mean, I used to do 200 units a year.
Oh wow. Okay.
It's like 4 or 5 a week if you can.
Yeah.
And then still get vacations in there and everything. So I don't know how many work days there are in a year, but it's a lot of units out the door.
Yeah.
And I've cut back quite a bit. I used to do this as a side gig too. So I spent a decade doing race stuff out here.
Okay.
Before I was a transmission builder day in and day out. Set my lunchbox on my toolbox and build transmissions all day, and for a shop. And it's just what you do, So make it happen, and just to mix, go home after a long day of building transmissions all day to come here to do the same thing. But at least this stuff I can be passionate about. It's not necessarily passionate about, but you still have to have a reputation to make sure it works. It functions. It goes on the road. You have shops out there you wouldn't want to trust somebody to do their transmission because they don't have a reputation. Yep. So I don't want to be something that I would be losing sleep over because if I was building a poor unit or something that didn't work or something I was not proud of, I wouldn't want to do it.
Right.
So to build a 4L60 out of a mom and pop's generic 3500 truck, make it the best you can. It's got to last just as long. My goal is to make it last longer than the first time it went out. So that's kind of where it come to be it used to be I was really meticulous about it, and I still am, but focusing on making that one part and individual thing work, and you still have to.
Yeah.
But with the stock stuff, you can figure that there's going to be some mishaps. It might not go 80,000 miles, and all of a sudden, the converter goes out of it. Now you have a pan full of shit and metal everywhere. Now you have to go through the whole thing all over again. And you could do that same way with somebody just installing one of these. I've done it many times. 2 or 3 times a year, I have to go through a brand new overhaul that somebody botched the install on, ruined the pump. The brand new converter's junk. The pump is junk, and now you got metal everywhere. So it happens. But sometimes you have to just go through it again and make it happen. But long-term stuff with the generic public general repair shops, the warranty is only as good as the product you put in it. So unfortunately, for an independent shop, AMCO or somebody, big places, sometimes they have other builders put their stuff in from other shops, or like another AMCO. So not every AMCO has a transmission builder. So one AMCO might be building transmissions for the other 3, 4, 5 other hubs.
Oh, okay.
So that happens. Not every single one. And transmission builders are hard to come by. I wouldn't say dying breed, but there's not a lot of them out there. Everyone's got an engine builder. I know 4 or 5. So it's easy to go to, but to try to find a transmission guy, it's probably a little bit more difficult. So one of the, with a reputation or somebody who can get the job done too. So
well, especially for like go fast stuff too, right? Like there's that as well.
Well, there's a lot of, like we were talking about this before we started, a lot of mail order stuff right nowadays where you just go, I'm going to order a monster transmission or I'm going to do something like that. But then you never know. I'm assuming they've still got the same struggles with finding transmission builders and doing all that stuff. Somebody could have a bad day and put one together not quite right. And then I love all this warranty work, right? Like, I'll warranty that part, but you got to put the transmission in. You got to take it out. You got to crack the case. Like, there's a lot of work to warranty something. Yeah,
it's not the funnest thing, but if you want to trust somebody, at Summit, I've gone through everyone else's stuff. Everyone. I don't care what side his name is on the side of the car. You still have to go through it if it doesn't work. The big name stuff, and obviously, if you're in the Midwest or you're 500, 600, 4,000 miles away from whoever built it, you got to find somebody local to take care of it if there is a problem in the first place. So I've been through every single monster transmission that they make. Probably, I just had a 727 here a couple months ago that the guy didn't even work. Put it in,
really?
it had issues. Sometimes they don't even like. I don't even know if it dynoed. Why would it even leave if this thing really? It wouldn't even work. Made it around the block, even if it had gone out of the garage. So there's stuff like that happens, and you have to kind of take what somebody else is going to do with their recipe and then find out, make it work. Some stuff is simple. You're not going to order a $4,000 or $5,000, a 4,000 horsepower transmission. Unless it's from an M&M or big name company, Rossler, to do something that they aren't going to put the best stuff in. So mail order stuff, Jag Summit, you can order this stuff, and most of it looks like stock. Unfortunately, I've been through a lot of transmissions that it's a glorified pile of shit that really should have had better parts in it. And unfortunately, the bottom end is bottom line. They want to make and maximize every bit of it, but a lot of times people don't really fully understand what it takes to make a product work. So if you're going to use stock parts like 1,000 horsepower, 400, you can use the forward hub. It's just a cast iron thing, known to break at 600, maybe some horsepower. It depends on the torque. But if that's in a stock performance or a racing transmission, you didn't get what you paid for. Just, you could use a 4L81 or rollerized 4L81s. They're steel. They're actual better quality product. So the composition of the parts that you actually going in the transmission makes a difference. It depends on what the weakest link is. The input shaft is going to give up eventually, but if you're going to pay $3,000 for a transmission, it comes out stock, but it's got a sticker on it. It just doesn't cut it. So unfortunately, a lot of that happens, and your local transmission builder is going to be the one who takes care of it in the first place, because if you have to ship it back and forth, the companies, their warranty is only so much. Right. They're only going to eat so much. Monster has probably had, I don't know, they probably try to take care of a lot of their warranties, I'm sure, but a lot of the stories I've heard from other people, I've never bought one, so I can't really say anything, but I've gone through a lot of their stuff. So unfortunately, to find a builder or find somebody who knows what they're doing, 10% of them work great and everyone has no problems. What about the other people? So you just sometimes you got to take care of the warranty, or you just charge the customer and then they just go back and try to get their money back from the builder or the people who own it or bought it, or whoever went through it.
What's the way that you would recommend then? If let's say I'm up to 2,000 horsepower, I'm ready. I want to start getting into the 8s and low 8s, and I'm ready to go TH400. Do you just source a case? Do you just find your builder and go, hey, put me one together, or is that what do you suggest?
if depends on how inclined you are, like as a do-it-yourselfer guy.
Well, let's just pretend. So I've had lots of transmission problems over the years, but I grabbed junkyard transmissions and swapped them out because and they probably were something simple inside the transmission.
Right.
But no, thank you.
Right. No, and a lot of people don't want to crack it open or look into it.
Yeah.
It's what we're here for. It's what I do. And so I choose I choose my battles. I don't want to do this. I have an engine builder. Whatever. They're the specialists. You go over there, and the transmission side of things, contact somebody who really is known to do it. Either like an opinion, or to have them go through it or open it up and see what's what. Sometimes it's cheaper to do, and it's easier to do too, instead of going back to the junkyard to get a new unit and lob in. You already have one that's used. I mean, why put another one in there if it's questionable too? So sometimes transmissions have common issues too, in the 3/4 clutch on a 4L60. The beast, or the reverse reaction shell, is always a problem back until pre-2003 when they hardened it. But prior to that, anybody calls you up and says, "Yeah, I just lost a second in reverse." Now I know exactly what part it needs, but you have to. Why would you put another junkyard unit in there for the same year you have, and it doesn't probably already have the upgraded part that you should have in the first place? So you have a time bomb that's going to go off in 10,000 miles, or did you just inherit another problem altogether? So it's always better to have the transmission in the vehicle that came in the vehicle with it, because you know either way it came from, or you're better off with something that's not been pieced together with 3 other units too. So you're better off just using what you have and finding somebody, or going through it with however you want it to go about it, but use what you originally had. So I mean, PowerGlides, we can take parts from. I got a new pump for that from another 1965 transmission that we're going to put in it, but the castings are different. It's not interchangeable, but it's always better to start with what you had. So, someone else has already built this. I got to do a ton of upgrades to it, but it could be a mixed set in there. We'll see what happens when I take the pan off and I go through it and see if it's got mismatched components. And you get into the stuff where it could be an inferior setup too, and all of a sudden we should do something about that otherwise before it becomes a problem. So it's building these things is more or less like you fix the problem, and all the 30 other inherit other issues, but then you also have to modify it and make it work for this totally other different application for what it's not intended that it was originally designed for. So it's a catch-22. You have to go through all of it and make sure from end to end it's complete and done and fixed. I've gone through TCI stuff several times. Just had one here a year ago that it just didn't make it around the block. TCI build, and found the problem, but the builder who used 20 other different transmissions, because these big name places, they get cores from everywhere. Yep. The case could be junk on this one. Up here, we have Minnesota rot, so cases go to shit. The aluminum corrodes, and a lot of times the 4x4 480 stuff is all corroded and don't want to use this case. I don't want to use some of these parts, but now we're mixing matching other things across the board, and as often as these things are changed by either the factory, every other week Ford changes something. Friday, hey, let's change something, and Ford's more complicated that way. But I mean, at GM, you could take an alternator from a Metro and use it on probably a dually truck, a diesel truck. So they're more universal across the board. But Ford has got more money to play too. They change stuff. It's middle of the day, and now they have a running order change, and so this part doesn't mix with this anymore. And now, we got to go back a little bit maybe, or redesign that one too. So Ford has more money to be able to do that stuff, and it kind of makes it a little bit more difficult to be able to just lob new parts or other parts in there to make it work. So it depends on what you're getting. These other shops that tear this stuff apart and get just core parts, I've seen them. There's walls of input shafts and drums and cases, and we need one of these to put one together. They don't just they tried, and we all tried to take a good core that was a good runner and make it better. So, but you could build something into it too that it shouldn't have, and now you just inherited other problems. And if you don't catch it, know line pressure, know how it shifts when these people drop this stuff off, and okay, what line pressure was it at, and what's the issue, and why are we going through third gear every 500 miles, or having to replace the clutches? there's so many variables that until you tear it apart and actually do the forensic science on it and figure out what you have or where the problem is, it can be a lot of work. So
actually touch on that a little bit, right? Because like, you know, we've had a lot of shop owners on the show where like they have a particular way of diagnosing issues, right? But now you're getting into something that has, let's be honest, a shit ton of parts by itself.
Yeah, it's magic.
So, yeah, it is magic to a lot of guys, right? Like, so
it is, yeah.
So what does diagnosis of a transmission failure look like to you?
I can take it apart, and I've seen it before, a Ford E4OD going down the highway, a Super Duty truck. If it's had a slow leak, all of a sudden you can see where the clutches are slowly, for every gear ratio has diminished, and some parts are burnt. And then like second intermediate clutch is less burnt, third is less burnt. You know, so you can kind of tell what's going on based upon what how it looks inside.
If you're a young enthusiast learning to wrench or an experienced shop owner already running 7s at the drag strip, the High Performance Academy is a resource where all horsepower junkies can go to expand their skill set. Whether you are learning how to build an engine, tune your ECU, or dial in your suspension setup for some weekend autocross, the HP Academy has the perfect step-by-step course for you. They've provided the listeners of the show with a special 55% off discount code that you can use risk-free on any course of your choosing. Use code MINNOX, MINNOX, to get 55% off, or click the link in the show description to choose a course of your liking. Go check it out. Let's get back to the show.
I can tell if it's had a misfire. You know, 4L60s predominantly have an issue with the where the forward splines of the clutches engage into the sprag, and if it's misfired, it's counteracting against it. It's kind of banging against the teeth of the splines of the clutch.
Okay.
So it kind of makes them pointy and sharp, but not all the time. I mean, you have to have a misfire that pretty bad to let that happen.
Yeah.
And I mean, to not fix your vehicle by the time it wastes your transmission, that whole mass airflow sensors.
People do maintenance. This is
Well, he's seen it and he knows the problem, so somebody's definitely done it.
Oh yeah, I've seen it before.
Yeah.
Mass airflow sensors will wipe out electronic transmission because the transmission. No, we don't have a kickdown cable to make sure line pressure goes up with throttle load. So you use a mass airflow sensor that determines how much load is going on the engine. But if your transmission pressure isn't ramping up and correlates, one-to-one with it, it'll burn up. Lose a kickdown cable on an AOD without a shift kit in it, you just lost overdrive. You just waste it right away, and it's got no kickdown. So you could do that on the hoist. Just put in a brand new transmission together and put it in a car, and you have big tires or something on it. It could be in truck, but an AOD, if it doesn't have the kickdown cable set right and it doesn't have a shift kit in it to modify it so it's hydraulically better, you could just waste that band on the hoist. Just put in the vehicle and just test shifting it. That's it. So I mean, you could do a lot of damage pretty quick in some of these things, and especially if it's not built right. There's some stuff where it counts, it matters. So there's really there's an exact science to it. And
well, one of the things, like one of the highlights we had on this episode, like, are you familiar with Greg Banish by any chance?
No.
So he wrote the book on tuning, right? Like we're talking like. It's insane how much of our audience has come from Greg Banish, but
is he local?
No, he's Detroit
area.
Yep.
Okay.
So he's worked for each of the OEMs.
Cool.
He gets around, but one of the things he touched on is like if you're not having good data from your injectors, that just goes down the entire line and just causes issues. Like it can cause transmission issues and all that stuff. Do you have the same ideology on that too?
Yeah, the drivability side of everything, it matters. If it's an electronically controlled transmission, it needs every single bit of data. Your mile per hour, just your speedo alone, your shift points, or it has to be specifically set to the tire size, axle ratio. So unless something's driven by the actual output speed sensor of the transmission itself, it's going to rely on false data. So back in the day, was that you put a colder thermostat in something to make it run richer, right? More horsepower is what it was, but you're tricking the computer and the emissions or the system to actually function differently. So you can manipulate these in many different ways, and and not really have them work right either. So it's very important to have the data go to the transmission, and if you don't, something with it's electronic, but this is going to be a manual valve body. There's nothing that it needs, but maybe a speed sensor or wire going to lockup switch. That's it. So the complexity of nowadays transmissions, it needs every single bit of data, and you'll get codes, false codes. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that can go wrong in them. Nowadays, especially, they're all solenoid driven, so it functions based on how the information that it gets from either the engine or the PCM. If the engine has a catalytic converter that's plugged up and you're just lost 15 horsepower, and it can't breathe, it's struggling. The transmission. Most people say, oh. Back in the day, it was very common on the GM38s. Converter would be plugging up, and all of a sudden you don't have overdrive because it doesn't have enough power to get into overdrive because your foot's so far into it that it doesn't even call for overdrive because the throttle position sensor is so wide open. A lot of people are like, my transmission's all messed up. No, it's not. It's just the converter.
Okay.
The catalytic converter, exhaust anyways, and your engine power's down.
Yep.
So it all matters. It makes a difference.
It just seems like a transmission because you can't kill a GM38. Those things that go on forever.
Yeah. If you could find them in some more, it'd be a great car to have. But I mean, a lot of them are kind of corroded around here.
Oh yeah, no, they're rotted away.
Really nice car to have.
It's funny you say that though because I just did a 93 Cobra intake. I have a 91 GT convertible Mustang that we put the Cobra intake on. I did a throttle body. I did all silicone vacuum lines. All that
upgraded stuff. Yep.
Yeah, so now I got the car back together. It runs great, and I went to go test drive it. I got first and second gear. My AOD is acting all kinds of crazy, and I was like, it was shifting just fine before I did this. So I did something that's not. I don't have a kick down. I got something going on. So,
put gauges on it. They have taps on them for a reason.
Yeah,
that's the way part of the diagnosis thing. Obviously, GMs here they only have just the one line pressure sensor, but the AOD has several: direct clutch, intermediate clutch, forward clutch. So there's taps all the way around the case. You could actually just put a gauge on and see what it's doing here or there. So Ford is kind of nice in that respect, but they're not like that anymore. There's just one pressure port. So,
do you have an opinion on some of this new 10-speed and 8-speed stuff?
I don't touch 8-speeds. I've done 2 of them, not performance wise. And it's a ZF transmission that was co-engineered for GM, and Ford didn't use one that I know of. But Ford and GM have gone in cahoots and did the 6 speeds and the 10 speeds. It's all a ZF platform, so it's foreign to a point, but the 10 speeds are really good. I haven't done a GM one yet. I don't know why. I mean, I don't know if they're all being done at the dealership or what.
Yeah.
Fords I have. I shouldn't say, but like performance-wise, I haven't done a GM. I've done 4 of the 10-speed Fords. 2 of them for Dave Rasmussen.
Yeah. We've had him on too.
Yep. So 2 of them were for them. They're 1,200 wheel horsepower. One was David Buck. He just passed away. I heard here recently. So I did that one for him, and then that was a couple, probably 3 years ago now. I don't even know when. And then one for Dave. So I'm pretty sure. But so either way, I mean, there's a great solid unit. It doesn't mean it shouldn't have parts, but I mean, you have to put extra clutches in them. You still have to do nowadays the CDF drum and the basket. So there's some inferior parts that it really should get replaced when you do one. Now that we know about it, they had a bushing spin and caused some issues. And the nice thing about it is with Ford and GM, they didn't change that. They didn't do anything differently. So if Ford doesn't have, because every 10 speed in the dealer has needs that drum, just go to GM and get it. So Ford won't really tell you that.
Oh, I'm sure.
They're not going to go out and just go to GM and go buy the part. But when in the transmission realm, independent shops, we can do that stuff. So it's nice to be able to do, but they don't. It's kind of the same manufacturer, but it's just in 2 different boxes. So I don't know how much of that it plays in effect with the new GM. I've never had the 2 side by side, but I just I've gone through 6 speeds, GM and Fords. GM 6-speed predominantly a lot. Today's 4L60. So
I was gonna say when you brought the 4L60, I was like, you mean that transmission with all the neutrals in it?
Yeah. Park works great though.
Yeah, that was when we went to that museum down there. Remember that transmission I was taking apart on the bench?
Yeah.
I was telling you, I was like, that I'm pretty sure that was a 4L60. I was like, those are always apart.
Put them together with Velcro.
Yeah.
What do you see come through here the most? Like what just sucks, I guess.
PowerGlides. It's a weird thing to not like. I mean, I build them. I build tons of them. I've got some out there, 3,000 horsepower versions, and I mean they're a great transmission. It's just not as fun to build. You know, I mean, there's a lot to go. I take every single bit of pride into it, but still, it's a PowerGlide. Like they only work for so much. They only work so well. They only do so much, and they're limited. But they work for what they do very well.
Okay.
So
touch on that, right?
Very
Because
efficient.
It's a regular debate, right? Like PowerGlide versus TH400. I keep seeing this regularly. When would you want to do one over the other?
Depends on what you're doing.
Okay.
Quarter mile car, I would take a 3-speed all day long. And you know, 8th mile, 2-speed 400 if you need the strength or the power, or if you have the drivetrain to keep up with the 400. You know, it's a heavier duty transmission to begin with. It's straight up heavier duty. The parts, the components, you know, the output shaft size in itself. Not to say you couldn't, and when you get to like 3,000 horsepower, you have to, with the PowerGlide, you have to go big input shaft. You have to do something differently. But 400 will take a lot more power, more efficiently, and price, you know, prohibitively too. So a 400 will go twice as far as a PowerGlide will, until you put 10 grand into a PowerGlide. So 400, I mean, you can use a power. My limit on planetary from a 400 is 2,000. So to the tire. So 2,500 horsepower with 4 stock planets and a 4L80 400 works just fine. Depends on the weight, everything else. You know, sometimes shit happens. Let's see, Bad Cobra, Tony Santani. I originally did that transmission probably 10 years ago now. I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. It's been like 2014, maybe 11. I don't remember. But he just, I think it was last summer, he just, his rear planet shit the bed and, you know, fragmented. And he's only, 1,200 maybe wheel horsepower, maybe 4, I don't remember what it is, 1,600, 1,400
I think it's
horsepower.
16 nowadays, I think.
To the tire?
I don't know about that. I haven't met him yet, but I'm friends with him on Facebook. I could have sworn it's 16, but I might be wrong too.
It could, and so like I say, I mean, I build so many transmissions for so many people. It's so hard to keep track of this stuff. When they drop it off, I write down how much, what are we making, what are we building, and I'll call you in 3 months when it's done. And so to try to keep track of it, but so just out of the blue, I don't know, he just rolled into the throttle, and all of a sudden it shit the bed, you know, and it's not very normal. I always take care of my planets and make sure it's a usable core, whatever, make it work. It better be good. But it's fragmented, it just exploded.
Right.
You know? So it wasn't like it was hot. There's no bluing of the rollers. There wasn't, you know, the washers were fine.
Okay.
Until it shit the bed, you know, all of a sudden it looks like, you know, just like, you know, a bomb went off in the pan. But so sometimes
still like 11 years.
It's and beating the shit out of it too.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're starting with something that his core could have been made in 1968, 9, 72.
Okay.
You know, this stuff. It's all old. Making the 400 in 87. So, or no, 89. So, but either way, it's like you have to source good parts, and for the most part, they're good, they're strong, and you know, until you get into even like the custom, the reed case one that's got custom ratios in it, they still use carrier parts, and some stuff is still OE carrier. They just put new planets in it, pins, gears, but the carrier itself is still original. So PowerGlide's the same way. Build a shorty PowerGlide, they still use the stamped carrier or the cast carrier for the gears. They just machine out the back of it, put a new input shaft or output shaft in it, and weld it in place. And it's a stock 55-year-old part, still just reconditioned and repurposed.
Well, it's like Calvo said on his episode. It's like 400s and whatever. They're like the best redneck engineering ever made. You know,
they work.
Been around forever.
Yep. And it was a heavy-duty unit, and actually, I think it came from tanks. You know, and they had Allisons back in the day. My grandpa was working on Allisons in the Marines on the half tracks, and they had an Allison. I think they were 4 speeds, but just big monstrosities, an Allison, you know, and big transmission, and these turbo 400s. The Allison 545 clutches would fit right in place. So it's a lot of stuff that's it's exact science, and it came from General Motors.
Okay.
So it's all under the same umbrella, and they just repurpose stuff and use it over here. So I mean, there's some inherent stuff that you could put a turbo spline input shaft in a PowerGlide. Now you're using a converter from a turbo 400. So otherwise they had like a 12 spline input shaft, and nobody uses that. I mean, it doesn't fit a 400 converter, so use what fits. Use what works. And in the industry, people like parts that fit across the board, here to here to here. You know, you can use a converter from this car to that car, and it just makes it nice and universal. So, but it doesn't mean that you don't have to go through some struggles to make it work. You know, so that's part of the upgrades and everything else that you do to a transmission to make it work and survive. Is just if you want a reliable unit, you have to put all those parts in there, and it's got to be lubed. It's got to have coolant lubrication going through it to stay cool. So you can make 5 different modifications to the pump and then still have like struggling to get fluid to the back until you drill a hole over here and now fluid goes through. So even to manipulate dumps and converter dumps, and very popular. Everyone thinks they need to have a converter dump on their transmissions nowadays. It's like a Band-Aid, and 5% of the time they work.
Okay.
So unless your converter's spec'd into what you're doing and all this other stuff, and if you could have a converter that might take 8 seconds to get up on your two-step, or as far as it's going to go, wherever the converter's going to go, if it's too tight, but you're not going to launch very well, so people just will put a dump on it and lose all the fluid in the pump, and just goes back into the pan. But there's times where like in a PowerGlide, the way that it works, it's not effective if you just go through the cooler lines. It's downstream. It's just like an ineffective area. So sometimes you might gain 15 horsepower or a 15 RPM, 50 RPM. So if you need the extra 400 RPM to get your converter back up where your engine's going to be happy, that dump system probably isn't going to work until you re-engineer everything, put a good pump in it, put an actual internal dump system in it. So there's like Band-Aids that you can put on stuff, and it's a waste of money, unfortunately, and a lot of people go that route, but until you actually do it, you don't know. It could be some systems work differently, the input shaft size, the fluid restrictions in the pump and the bushings and how fluid goes from A to B. Some stuff it works better on, so some stuff it works great, but not all the time. So unfortunately, until you find out or you experiment with it and try it, you won't know. And I hate to see people put stuff on here that makes them work better or whatever, but it could be a wash too. So unfortunately, but for the most part, the industry takes care of a lot of the stuff for reinventing the wheel. Sonax, the big name companies, and all these people they're going after a purpose and specifically making something work better. So it's nice to be able to trust other companies too. But
do you have a common mistake that you see in this space?
Not necessarily. I mean,
or like a misconception.
No.
Whether it's a combination or something. Like, I guess to more specify the question, like some people, if you go into like, let's say Facebook forums, somebody has, all right, well, here's my secret sauce, it works.
Yeah.
And then everybody else will be like, no, this is better.
Clutches. A lot of people think that you got to have the most expensive, best clutches on the market. They want an overhaul kit, and I try to stay away from all that stuff too, the forums and like the transmission building 101 stuff. I'm part of a couple secret groups, like the big name people are on there. There's only 300 of us, like worldwide, but it's pretty much in the nation. I mean, there's awesome Australian people on there because they're badasses too.
It's always the Australians.
They get into it, but
yeah.
It's not like there's a lot of big name builders are on there, but so a lot of the stuff that I see on like the rookie forums or stuff I've always helping somebody else out on is like clutches, and you have clutches that have tan material, just stock paper, generic stuff, cheap, 97 cents a piece. And so if we're trying to fit 6 of those into a clutch pack to make it work better, a lot of people think that they got to have the best composition available, the best type of component, and the paper doesn't make it really work better. It just helps it last longer. So if you build a
paper, by the way, what does that mean?
The friction material on the clutch itself.
Okay, gotcha.
So,
okay.
Reds, blues, tans.
Yep.
Tan paper is just generic, just a standard paper. It's all in every stock transmission. The Red Eagle stuff, the Alto Reds, there's Rebestis material, Exidy material. They all have their own proprietary composition, but that material is meant to withstand heat, coefficient of friction, and all this other stuff. And so it depends on the fluid you're using too. And so I built 1,500 horsepower transmissions that had stock clutches in it, and they work just fine. Depends on what you're doing. And so some people, if it's not the miracle product, it's not the miracle part, you don't need the best of the best overhaul kit. You don't need anything that's magical, and you have to pay $15 of friction for. You're gonna put 18 frictions in this car. You got $400 into frictions that it could burn up in the first pass or on the block because you didn't doing something right. So it's not really what you use, it's about how you do it.
Okay.
So the composition, and like I say, I've taken stock replacement 480 transmission parts, 3,000 horsepower, You know, I just took that one apart, that reed case one this morning, and I just looked at the frictions on it. I can still read the ink. They're just stock.
Really? Okay.
Just stock 4L80 frictions I put in there last year. I don't know how many passes. Maybe he's got 35, 45 passes on it, and you know, it's a dry week car, so he goes on the highway too. But stock 4L80 frictions, I can still read the ink on there like it was the day I put them in there.
Okay.
So, and you know, second gear is one of those ones that just burns up randomly if you have, you know, half a quart low of fluid or too far low of fluid, or, you know, 4L80, they have a starvation issue with the pan. So very common to have that burn up. But what are they, $1.39 for a friction? I got 5 of them in there for that. It works fine. So, you know, it just depends on how much line pressure you have, or it's not necessarily, like I said, the material you're using. It can be, but it's a high energy stock friction anyways. So no sense of wasting money on something you don't need.
Well, since we're talking stock components in there, is there a stock for stock? In your opinion, what's the best one transmission ever made and the worst one ever made?
Oh boy.
Like reliability, handles a little bit of power.
I'm sure. Well, today's stuff, I don't really mess with like a lot of the stuff on the market today.
Yep.
I know Sean at DSRC. He's working with that 8-speed. I forget if it's a Nissan, whatever it is. I guess it's a phenomenally working transmission. I don't know anything about it. I've seen it in the field. You know, Nissan, whatever this thing is. It's there's a big brother to it I've worked on before. I forget the name, RE5, RO5, 1A, whatever it is. There's a lot of differences in other similar transmissions as that time goes on. So there's a lot of stuff out there that's really good, but there's some stuff that's just garbage too. So, you know, but they work, you know, Hyundais. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, I haven't worked on probably 10, 15 years, and I would refuse to today. I'm not going to work on some Hyundai or some Mitsubishi, something or other. You know, it's out of my wheelhouse. I want nothing to do with it. I've done many of them, but nope. Not going to do it. So, I mean, for the most part, I mean, they all have problems, every single one of them. Yeah. Bearings go out. This one's known to go bad. That's known to go bad. There's updates throughout the whole spectrum of it. So, you know, as from a certain transmission, Mercedes has always had a really decent transmission. Ford C6 has always been a good transmission.
Okay.
You know, and it depends on what you're doing with it. You know, I can build a C6 transmission to hold 2,000 horsepower, 2,000 foot-pounds of torque. But you're gonna have to replace the direct or the intermediate band, second band, frequently, because it's every 50 passes it's gonna wear out. The band is what holds the second gear. It has to stop the drum from spinning. So that's how you get second gear in a C6. Turbo 400. Now 4L80. Most of the 400, some of the stuff it's just interchange and go right into here. So, and it's 400 across the board. 400 is a 4L80 is a 400th overdrive. So a lot of stuff interchanges, and it's kind of the same science across the board, but a little bit different because now we have lockup and that doesn't. So they change parts through the pump and everything, but yeah, I'm not sure. You know, there's transmissions I would avoid mostly. A lot of. I mean, domestic wise, GM. I'm not a GM guy to begin with. I build enough of these things to know that 6070 that's going to show up here later today from another shop. I was probably one of the first people in the country to ever build one in 2009, and it came out in the platform in 2008. He had 110,000 miles on this car within like 10 months. He was an insurance, insurance guy. So you go to the dealer and we can get a transmission for you once we pull it off the line and get it in there like 6 months from now. But I rebuilt it. Had known issues. The 3.5R drum or the wave plate breaks and then just comes flying apart. Been a Achilles heel for the whole design, but Ford parts and the GM parts interchange every single one since that day. Every one I put in there has been a Ford part in the GM transmission because they didn't try to save a tenth of a penny and not induction harden that piece. So Ford goes the extra mile to give you a better product, the best of their ability. But it's also designed by, I think it was a co-engineer, it was collaboration with Ford and GM. So they both made it. They both have versions. The Ford valve body won't go in the GM spot, vice versa. But some components inside will interchange. The clutches, the discs, So there's some stuff that does work. But so it's kind of like builder science. You have to know what came out of this and that, and if it works, it goes in here.
So how about education for you then, right? Because you're trying to probably keep tabs on what's going on in the community. Where do you get? Do you get new information still nowadays?
Yeah, I still keep my fingers on the pulse. Because of the new stuff,
Okay.
you know, so I'm not like very on top of it because I haven't seen the 2020 Mercedes yet, but stuff like that, it's still part of the ATRA community, Automatic Transmission Rebuilding Association. I still keep in touch with what everyone else is in the industry is doing, and all these other forums for other transmission builder stuff. So there's other groups of us builders looking, you know, asking people or whoever it is, looking for information and data on the stuff.
Okay.
So it's out there. You just some of the stuff. If you don't, there's a whole nerd science evolution of the transmission world. So you can get really nerdy and technical on some of the stuff. And I mean, the gee whiz information that's out there is just nuts.
Really?
So, yeah.
So to follow up on that then, so what are some evolutions that you've seen in the last, let's say, 10 years? Has there been any reinventing of any wheels?
No, I mean, as it goes on, like this, so the progression goes like the 6 speeds to the 10 speeds,
Okay.
for instance. You know, for obviously GM tried the 8 speed. Ish. Don't even. People are successful with them. You know, it's not a problem. It's just like a Mercedes. I mean, it's a ZF transmission. It's got some failures here and there, and it's not something that was picked up by the industry in the first place. So they had major problems with it when it first came out.
Okay.
A lot of it was clutch material and the fluid and the tuning and just all the other stuff that goes with it because it was new. GM will release a new transmission, a new vehicle to the public, and before they probably really should, you know, and then they get caught in these situations.
Yeah, we're seeing
with
that
the
a lot
pants
right
down.
now with the trucks and everything.
So, you know, and as soon as that went on, I mean, you can see distinct similarities between the 6-speed, the 8-speed to the 10-speed.
Okay.
You know, a lot of the stuff, it's of the same manner, you know, so, but we're also constrained by the manufacturers who get the constraint, and their nuts are clipped by the EPA.
Yeah.
So everything has to be more efficient. We have stop, start stuff now. It's constant with trying to save and minimize or maximize the fuel.
Do you see more wear and tear because of that at all?
No, I don't. You still have. They know what they're doing by now. I mean, they still have the hardened parts. They still have the shafts that could have issues. But where a bushing could spin in a drum because it's aluminum, steel bushing, you know, dissimilar metals. But they're really good at really finding these problems, and they're actually maximizing it. A 10-speed is a great transmission. I wish my truck had one. You know, I was 1 year away. I bought a 19 Super Duty, but I wish I had a 10-speed. You know, 6-speed is. It's a 6R100, which is just a beefed up 6R80.
Yeah.
Same valve body, pan, case, all that stuff, but they added like 3 bigger shaft sizes in the hubs and the drums, and that's it. You know, 2 different bearings. So it's the same Planet 6R100. So it's not really shouldn't be in a Super Duty, to be honest, a 6R100, but it's way more efficient than the 5R or the the 10R120, 10R140. So it's a big, massive monstrosity. I mean, I built a couple of them, but I mean, they're huge. I mean, that's why they got away from it in 17, because it takes 5 miles to the gallon away from it. That's a pig of a transmission. So it's a big unit. It's heavy duty too, you know. So it was the progress from the 5R110. You can see distinct similarities from even like a Saturn, the 6T70. The first one I did, because the Saturn transmission, they're gone now. But the very first 6T70 I pulled apart because I knew it was a joint collaboration with GM and Ford, and I can tell this Saturn engineer did this valve body on the GM, and Ford did the planetary, Ford did the drums, Ford did all the heavy duty side of it. So you could tell who did what, you know. And so it's as the 10-speed progressed, the Allison came along too. That's a 10-speed now. I haven't seen one in life yet, you know. There's not one in the wild, but they've come a long way and made them strong, and they kind of have an idea. Everything's based on torque rating, so you know you're not going to put a 1/4-inch ratchet in to try to take your lug nuts off. You're going to use a 1/2-inch drive. So the shafts are, everything. It's to the science, and they've come a long way with even check ball and how the fluid flow design goes through the case and the valve body. They've actually put science into it. So. A lot of the stuff is progressed very well, and unfortunately, it's a lot of electronics. So there's tuning involved. There's solenoids everywhere, wiring harnesses and everything. So it kind of takes the drawback. You lose a lot of the
gift and a curse,
concept.
right?
They're good, bad. Until you have electrical fault, and they're great. Or until one of the solenoids shits the bed, they're great. So. I don't know.
It's kind of funny that you said that about because in all the Super Duty forums I'm in, I have a 16.
Okay.
But they say that the 19's the 1 year you want because
really?
A lot of guys aren't liking the 10-speed. I think because of the reliability issues or.
Possible. It's very possible.
And it could be, you know how it is, only the squeaky wheel is the one that's always bitching. So there's probably plenty of...
full of forums, and it's older too. So, I mean, 19 might not be predominantly as available, but what was it, through COVID? I mean, nothing was good, you know? All the chip shortage, I mean, they're selling products and stuff out the door. Even campers shit the bed, you know? I mean, you get a good camper.
You know all about that.
The fridges, everything's gone. The microwaves are junk. And so like to buy something like pre-COVID would be far better than buying something post-COVID.
Yeah.
It's hard to trust anything anymore.
2014 camper, and I listed in my listing. I said pre-COVID build.
That's a selling point.
Yeah, exactly.
So no, and I bought mine right through COVID. Actually, it was right after the riots. The guy I bought it from was a fire sale. The guy I bought it from was a Minneapolis police officer.
Okay.
So during the Floyd garbage, when that was happening, like they went to Florida. We have to get out of here. So fire sale, take the camper. It was fully loaded, you know, everything. But and it wasn't very much longer after that when I started like looking for my desirable camper, what I would want, like a toy hauler. I should have bought a toy hauler, because kind of what I need. But there at the time, and everything I've seen since then, like I'm kind of hesitant because. Unless it's pre-COVID, I look for something that was actually pre-COVID, taken care of. It's maintained and just put in the shed every year. Winter, it's been out of the sun all the time. Even if it's 10 years old, it could still be a good camper. So, mine's almost 8 years old right now, but still, I mean, it was used twice, literally twice when I got it. So it's like perfect. But still, some of the stuff. The manufacturers have to deal with. It's their warranties, it's their recalls. So if they don't put a good product out there, it's kind of up to them. And now that I'm not really like at a shop working in the environment day in and day out as a builder anymore, I don't see like a lot of the newer stuff, the new stuff. I still get asked about it. People are still asking about it and see what's good. And there's really nothing you can't go wrong with a new 10-speed as far as I'm concerned. You know, I mean, there's teething issues, but.
There used to be transmissions where you were having to work on them often or had problems with it, but they weren't super expensive too.
No.
Like I had one of those. I don't know if it's the first gen, but those like mid '90s Dodge Rams, and you knew it wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when on those. And I had one go out on me, but it wasn't crazy. It was like maybe $2,000 or something. I had it in the shop, and they were in and out because they would probably build them every few minutes. But nowadays, maybe it hurts more. I feel like they're maybe lasting longer, but you're talking now, you're $5,000-$10,000.
Oh, easily,
yeah.
Parts haven't gotten any cheaper, so unfortunately
they're more complicated.
And even like Borg Warner, the Spragues I try to buy, domestic stuff. It's all, I don't want the offshore China stuff. You can buy it from India. I mean, all the parts places, they sell the other stuff. They sell other grades. You go to O'Reilly's or Napa, they sell 3 different grades of quality of product. You want the good, better, or best.
Yeah.
That's in the transmission world. That's based on brand and where it comes from. So domestic stuff, Borg Warner, like the Ray Bessa stuff, you can't go wrong with it. But there was shortages, and so sometimes it happens where they're outsourcing other products too. They just put it in a box, somebody else's product in their box. So unfortunately that happens. But yeah, it's shitty to deal with. Sometimes you take parts out of a brand new box and they're already inferior. You could tell by looking at it, or it just didn't even pass the inspection test. You can't just take a part out of the box and expect it to work. You're not going to just lob it in there, even if it comes from a big name company, Rossler, Cohen, whoever it's from. You can't just throw it in the case and expect it to work.
Yeah, nothing is 100%.
No.
Good parts or bad parts.
Yeah,
it just happens way more often with bad parts.
Exactly right. Yeah. So I mean, that's the problem. And all of a sudden, they could rip off 2,000 of them, and you're the first person to catch the flaw.
Yeah,
that's happened. And unfortunately, I mean, it's not going to be the end of it either. It's just going to continue to happen. We're recovering. For like parts wise. Everyone's started to make good quality products. Everyone's getting back to where we're making stuff readily available, and you can just order a billet valve body and it shows up 3 days later. The parts that they use, the solenoids and everything, they're high quality military grade product. So if you get your parts sourced from somewhere that's trustworthy and they're actually hands on, they're doing it themselves, you're not going to go wrong. And if there's a problem, you call them, they take care of it. It's pretty simple.
Here's a question for you. With all this tariff stuff, when it comes to American-made products in the transmission world, how's that going to affect things? Do you have any idea? Do you buy a lot of American made?
Well, as much as I can.
Okay.
I'm not going to, when I order overhaul parts for this, I can buy the China stuff, the cheap stuff. It's $3-4 cheaper. It's not much of a difference. When I put my order in, my sales guy at WIT, he already knows just some of the top grade stuff. I'm not going to take something that's cheap, especially this stuff like this. This has to be the best of the best.
True.
It has to work, and I'm not going to cut corners on anything else. But I think as long as if we're making products ourselves, yeah, sure, costs can go up because some places outsource their material. I buy a lot of stuff for these from TCS. That Planet Overdrive Planet for this thing is TCS. It's Canada. They're just north of, I think, is Seattle. So I asked them when I ordered that here a couple weeks ago, what do they expect? It's like, well, we're kind of eating it for now. They've already enacted some stuff. They're eating it. But it's just across the border. So it's manufactured in-house. They take a GM Planet, stock Planet, and remachine it with the billet splines and the billet top cap to it and just sell it. And so they're really just making a good money on it, but they're also being imposed a tax to it.
Right.
If they're going to eat that, it depends on how much it is. 10, 20%. I suppose it's going to trickle down economics. It's going to come to the consumer eventually. Right. It's bound to. For me, as long as I'm buying American product, they're using American sourced product too. Why should their tariffs affect anything? So as long as we're buying within this economy, we shouldn't have any problem.
Yeah.
I'm not going to change anything. Yeah. I'm not going to start buying anything from China. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
So I'll support it, as many people here as possible.
Well, it's also not a cheap sport either, right? Like people already expect to spend an absurd amount of money.
And you got to spend $50 more for because you're imposed on something. I don't think anybody's going to deny that or say, I want my parts from China. So.
Well, I think it's just going to, people are getting all bent out of shape about it, but it's just forcing people to do exactly what you're already doing, right? Like that's the people who know what's up. It's kind of going back that direction, which is the whole point.
Is there
a shift? Exactly. Yeah.
So one of the things that we talked about with Apex Turbo, I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but they do a lot of stuff here stateside. But the one thing that they cannot get away from is castings. You have to do that. You have to do that in China just because it's a dirty process. I think the minimum order is like 10,000, which is just not happening for a lot of people. Is there some things in your world that you just cannot get away from when it comes to China-made products?
Yes and no. There's other options. So Sonax, for instance. So a lot of I buy a lot of Sonax parts, and some of the stuff they have plants in India. So they own the actual metallurgy, or they own the forgers or foundries in India, and they own the product that they're machining from. So when I get it out of the box, it's probably American made and machined, but parts are sourced from India. So there's some product, and they're not going to use cheap grade stuff. So like chromoly tubing, you have American or German made. So if I put chromoly tubing in my car, I'm going to use either one or the other. I'm not going to use some India or Chinese steel at all. So you have choices. So some of the stuff like Sonax, it's proprietary for them. They're the only ones who make a 1:5:8 gear ratio. So if that output shaft happens to have been sourced from India, I can't control that. But you want a Turbo 400 instead? I mean, where do you want to take it? So some stuff you have an option, but some stuff you're just kind of stuck with it. So I won't buy transmission parts. They get it from Ford, they get it from GM, they get it from Chrysler. They're not going to take a solenoid that's meant for a 6R80 and make it themselves. It just comes from Ford. They might buy 5,000 solenoids. And now the WIT distribution center parts area, they have a ton of them. And then it goes to local distribution centers. So as long as like GM Techums, they use them, unfortunately. We went through that whole ordeal through COVID where the Tecum came in a GM box from Canada, blue box GM, AC Delco, and then through COVID, I used to replace Tecums frequently because they're contaminated. The converter shit the bed, the screen's faulty, and it went haywire. And now you have to replace the Tecum. You can't just clean it out and put it back on a freshly overhauled transmission because it's going to possibly wipe out the transmission. So replace it and be done with it. They were coming from Canada, obviously through GM, and then they started wanting a core on these parts. Why would you put a core on a GM or a dealer part. Then so you could tell they wanted them back, but then they started coming from Mexico. So they're obviously taking the good solenoids from that Tecum solenoid pack. It's a computer, the transmission, electronic hydraulic control module. Got all the solenoids in there and the computer to make it work. And so they'll use this solenoid, this solenoid, this solenoid, this one's junk, replace it or fix it, whatever it is, and then put it in a new unit and send it back out the door. It comes in a brand new GM box. And then parts used about a year later, parts started coming from China. GM box. You're going to the dealership to buy a Tecum, and now it's being outsourced. No, I don't go to GM to buy products from China.
Right. You're paying a premium for it too to do that. Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing.
You don't have a choice though. I mean, where else are you going to get? You're going to make it yourself?
Yeah.
Right.
You're just kind of stuck. So unfortunately, it's you have to live through it, So.
Well, that's one of the other things too, like through the pandemic, like all of a sudden you got used to this other supplier that's also cheaper. Do you really want to go back to it too?
Right.
It's like, I'll take a little margin too. So I'm curious how much of that stuck around.
Other companies, it's good with a competition. A lot of people don't like competition, but a competition is good because that part could be cheaper. If there's 3 other people that make it now, and now you're all competing, and it's the same quality, great product for the input shaft, whatever it is, a valve body even, and so now prices start to come down because of competition. So it's nice in that respect where people are, more, I wouldn't say more cost effectively selling their product, but there's not like a royalty on it either. Like valve bodies seem to come down a little bit in price, like everything. Used to be able to buy a brand new Ford Godzilla when they first came out for what, $6,200, $6,100. Now they're what, at $8,500.
Yeah.
That was when they first came out, and like, why would it be so cheap? All of a sudden, the prices go up, and they're going to start to come back down again. This is the way the Coyotes were too. Yep. I don't know why, but the first year release of anything, it's the year to buy one if you're going to buy one. So, but it is what it is. So, I don't see anybody switching to stay with an inferior product or something that's outsourced to be cheaper. That's where those fly-by-night deals come through with like Craigslist. You have a lot of builders saying, come get your transmission, and they're reusing a lot of the parts. If it's good, they put it back in. Not really the definition of an overhaul, but they're trying to save every bit of money that they can. But here's your $500 overhaul. Do you want a torque converter with that? How long do you really expect that to last?
Right.
So there's those fly-by-night shops that those parts are just meant for, and I don't want even the problems. I don't want to deal with even the name or having a phone call saying we have a problem with this or that or this or that. I don't even want that. Call me, but I don't want to deal with any of that stuff.
Well, it's a part. Like there's times to do so. There's been so many things that I've replaced even on like engines and things like that because it's out. Right now I can reach it. Yeah, I'm like, I'm just going to do this right now.
You're not going to put an inferior part in there either.
Right, exactly.
Rear main seal. Give me the cheap one.
Yeah.
Who does that? I mean, it's not going to work. It just doesn't happen. But there's if you know what you're doing, there's times and places for all this stuff too.
Yep.
Just to choose your battles. So it depends on where do you want to draw the line. A lot of people, you build a $50,000 big block and it's ready for all the boost you can throw at it. Why would you stop the budget at the flex plate? A lot of people only want to spend $8 on an overhaul or a transmission, so they shop around and look for the cheapest thing. Jegs has them for $1,800. How long is it really going to work, and how well is it going to work, and how long is it going to last? So, and same deal. That's why I go through so many of these other builds, and it just wasn't even built to suit or didn't meet expectations. Or you got a stock transmission that you just got ripped off on, or would have had a nice blue paint job on it with a sticker. So that happens a lot, unfortunately, because transmissions. I mean, everyone knows engines. Yeah. Everyone, that's the most important part of the car. So transmission, no one cares about a transmission. Who gives a shit about
like I said, I just take them out and replace them because I'm not diving in there. I actually just did my wife's Navigator out there. Had all these pressed on crimp connections now too in the coolers, and it's pissing me off. So I had one that was leaking, and I was like, I'm gonna wipe it off just so I can see where it's leaking, because it's messy.
Watch it,
And as soon as I touched it with the rag, the whole line came off in my hand. I went, "Whoa, that's cool."
Nice.
So now I'm doing brand new cooler lines.
Yep. Since
so
you're
then
in there.
I'm like, yep. So now I'm like, all right, cool. I'm under here. Let's drop the pan. Let's do the fluid, do the filter, because I've heard on those 6R80s of that, those particular trucks were, it was a good idea to do that. Which is going to lead me to my follow-up here. That's another weird area, right? Changing your filter and transmission fluid. It's like one of those questions. Half the people are going to tell you yes.
Don't do it.
And some people are like, if it's not fucking with you, don't mess with it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
A lot of times I get transmissions in that somebody else has already shotgun lube or fluid at.
Yep.
Didn't fix the problem, did it? You just wasted $200 in fluid and just to bring it to me with a clean pan of fluid.
Yep.
So by the time it gets to the point of having a pan full of shit, fluid's not going to fix anything. It's not a magical lubricant. So I mean, there's times where the transmission fluid is broke down. You have no lubrication properties in it whatsoever. The friction modifiers are absorbed or burnt out of it. The torque converter's shuttering. Causes major issues, specifically like 8-speeds when they went through the fluid issue. I forget who it was. Mobile One. Mobile re-engineered the oil for the 8-speed, and then they come up with something else. I think it's a blue color, but so then it fixed all the shuttering issues in the 8-speed. Well, you change your fluid out, and all of a sudden your problem's gone. It's shifting better. It's not shuttering. It's not shaking. It's not doing its thing. And it was just only because of fluid. Now, if you bring something that's burnt up and there's no hope for it, you're going to change fluid for nothing. It's just a waste of money. Some people say that the fluid, the lubrication or the friction material that's in the fluid and suspended in it is actually helping shift better and it's working better. It's just stuck in the filter. It's not doing anything. You just still have dirty shit fluid going through the rest of the transmission that's not helping. So I mean, you could. If the fluid wasn't fluid anymore and is burnt up and it's just gone,
there's an underlying issue.
Yeah,
okay.
Putting new fluid in it will not help anything. So if the damage is already done, unless it's like a remote issue or a circumstance where it is the fluid, the fluid broke down and it's not burnt up, the transmission's not destroyed or anything, then it's possible that it will change things.
But otherwise, if your transmission's not giving you issues, don't be dropping the pan and changing the filters and
you still have to do your maintenance on it.
You want to do maintenance? Okay.
Still, once the fluid starts turning like from a bright red to an orange, it starts getting old. The dye is cooked out of it kind of, so it starts turning orange. If it's gets around 700 degrees, it's clear because the dye is just burned off. You don't see it anymore. So sometimes like a race car, you'll see they used a Dextron 3 or fluid, something that's red, and it got really hot. It starts coming out of the pan clear because that detergent or the dye is burned out. So different things happen at different heat levels, and there's nothing wrong, especially heat cycles. There's nothing wrong with putting new fluid in something. 30,000 miles of my Super Duty, 30,000 miles. I tow a trailer, a 37-foot camper with it, so it's one of those things where it doesn't hurt. Before it gets to the point where it doesn't have lubrication in it or it doesn't have any friction modifier in it, change it. It only makes sense to keep fresh fluid in it or good fluid anyways. So.
A factory ECU can get you really far, but if you're trying to get the most out of your car, you have to take your tuning to the next level. Whether you are doing a highly original LS swap or are a glutton for punishment and want to keep your rotary, a Haltech can help you extract top-level performance while keeping your car tolerable to drive. If you go to tunedbyshawn.com, you can schedule a free consultation to see what is right for you and your build, but you can also go there, save 5% on all Haltech goodies using code Minnoxide, and do it all yourself. That's tunedbyshawn, SHAWN.com. Let's get you back to the show.
Most of the people I build these for, they know what they're doing. They're not going to take, this. I think this is it's going to be built for 1,500 horsepower all day long, but he's going to turn up the boost a little bit, and I think it's a new engine. He said too. First time I've ever met the guy. Most of the time I've never met. That guy met before. That guy I've never met before. This guy I never met before. We talked for 5 minutes. What do we do? What does it have to be built for? And I'll call you in 3 months. So if they know what they're doing, they're going to put it in right and properly. And I'm very adamant on if I'm not there. Like he picked it up a couple days ago. Another PowerGlide, high-end PowerGlide, for a Nostalgia Pro mod, lift-off body and everything. He drives a street car. But I'm going to go over to his place. He had put a new motor plate in it, and I want to make sure that the converter spacing is proper. I'm going to go. He's going to measure it. I have to machine the spud down on the converter for the Pilot, but still, he's going to get all his measurements down. I'm going to go over to confirm it, make sure it's good to go. I mean, he's right across in Hudson anyways, but still, I want to make sure people put these things in properly because, I mean, you just eliminate 90% of the reason that they fail. It's just on installation. Converter could be cocked, and that was the problem with the last one that he dropped off, and the converter was kind of uncentered, and it kind of wiped out the pump, and I had to do a bunch of machine work and everything. And it's been in the car since for last, I think the TSI, Transmission Specialties built that transmission in 2006. So it's been really not a race car. It's kind of a nostalgic thing, but not a lot of time on it either. So I had to go through it, and it was in a storage fire. The only reason I went through it wasn't because it wasn't working or anything functioning, but the vehicle was in a storage fire. So I had to go through it, and you wanted to sandblast or recondition the reed case and go through it again. So, for sometimes when you go through these things, it could just be a refresh. I just built that 40 passes ago. He just wants to make sure it's good to go before he goes for the year, like everyone else. Just make sure it's good to go. So refreshes are very common.
And when you're putting that kind of horsepower through stuff, it's probably
you should.
You want to get just into the season and then have it blow up on you.
So there's a lot of things that, and sometimes some of these guys they've known better. All of a sudden, they actually accidentally squish a converter, and then something just didn't seem right. Where maybe the converter slid out and they crushed the pump gears. Got another guy right in Hudson, same deal. He destroyed a brand new BTE converter in the pump and everything. It was a C4 transmission that somebody else built a long time ago. But he knew better. He's a hardcore hot rod guy, high horsepower guy, and so he just knew better. And all of a sudden, he's mid plate, motor plate, a lot of stuff going on. But he sandwiched the pump gears together and turned the key. So I don't know why he wouldn't have. He said I kind of had an idea when I was trying to turn the motor over to get the converter bolts through it, but I really shouldn't have started it. And you did it. You don't really probably know unless you took it back apart and say, "Oh man." But he knows what to look for now. Unfortunately,
sometimes those are expensive. Learning curves.
It took a catastrophic failure for it to happen, but unfortunately, we'll take care of it, and get it done. But it happens. 2-3 times a year, somebody messes their install, ruins a pump, the converter, whatever.
Well, mating the transmission back to the engine, I hate it. It's like because it's not something you can like super visually confirm either. And
lob it up there and hope for the best.
Yeah, right. There's so many times, and most of the stuff I've done is manual transmission. So I'm like, shit, did that bearing? Did I fucking? The pilot bearing. I was like, damn it. Yep. I can't tell right now if it is good or not good.
And there's a lot that goes to it too. To be able to measure like your tight distances, but use a drill bit to get between the converter and flex plate. Pretty easy. You're not going to get in there with the caliper. So just use an 1/8 inch drill bit. It's like a go no go gauge. If it works, great. Doesn't, find out why. Is it too loose, too tight? So, but that's pretty much. Like the install side of it. If people get that right, chances are it's going to work fine.
Yeah.
So, we're still dealing with stuff, it could be 40, 60 years old, whatever it is, and trusting the pump to be proper. I still flatten surfaces and true everything up the best you can, but doesn't mean that when it's 110, 200, 220 degrees, that the bore of the pressure regulator valve isn't loose. It's, been oscillating. Maybe the pump has 500,000 miles on it. Chances are it's not, but still, if it's in good condition, use it. It's what we're doing here when somebody brings a core. Unless you want to buy all brand new parts, it could be $900 for a pump. So it could be a $15,000 transmission pretty quick. So we have to kind of depend on the good resources of prior parts, used parts. So, and just you recondition everything to make sure it works anyways. But PowerGlide pumps, unless they started making them again, it's all aftermarket. And they're all Chinese castings, all of them. Right. They're fine. There's nothing wrong with them. The pumps BTE has and TSI have. They had these pumps casted because there's such an outcry for new parts, and they're new. They're better. Actually, to me, I think when I drill them to make passages and lube modifications and everything, to me, they're a better casting than the ones in the 60s. So they've come a long way too. So the metallurgy can also, at that same time, be better than what they did have.
True.
Block castings, for instance, they've come better a long ways. Stock Ford racing block is a better quality block than you can get back in the day. Yeah. Just because of the technology and what they're using and how they scrutinize it. Back then they just poured some molten metal into a pile of sand. They still do it today, but the material that they're using is a little bit better.
Well, they don't do it here because the foundries and OSHA and all that shit made it impossible, which is why you got castings outsourced. But yeah.
And so even then there's problems that arise too. It was like 4 or 5 years ago, just maybe through COVID, before COVID, I was building a really badass Pro Mod reed case, and so I got a bunch of billet cone parts and exotic stuff to go in there. Nothing's besides the part Paul is stock 400 stuff. So a reed case and everything, and all the parts start sourcing in, and I start throwing it up on the stand and everything, go to town on it, start assembling, just sub-assembling some stuff and fitting this here and there. And the center support, all billet, nice 70-75 aluminum, just wouldn't go in the case. Why? Where's the problem? So I'll get a stock center support, it still doesn't drop in. Now we're looking at the case issue. And Reed, I think, built about, or manufactured or cast about 200 units that the case lugs inside the case were off a half a lug. So the whole case, everything's junk. You can't just remanufacture a center support to make it fit those cases.
That's not a cheap fix.
No. Yeah. So, and I talked to several people on it, and I talked to Colin. I was like, where's the problem here? I didn't have another 400 reed case, just to sit around and compare it to. And then I was talking to Colin, and he's like, so they still have some of those out there. He's like, what do you mean? So apparently there was an issue with the cases that everyone else has known about, but me. So I called Dennis, Reed in California, and like, why wouldn't you have told me that to begin with? I mean, they just bought it back, shipped me a new one, send it back in. But the whole line of them. Can't even use them. They're junk. Scrap them.
Yeah.
Turn them into other new ones, And as far as I know, when they sold it, Circle D now owns Reed. I think they're cast here in Minnesota.
Okay.
Speculation, from what I understand. Last time I went to PRI, I was talking to Dennis about it. And he says there was a case shortage because you couldn't get a Reed case for about a year and a half or 2 years because they had an issue with the founder who kicked them out, and they stopped manufacturing Reed or casting Reed cases for Reed.
Interesting. Okay.
So they had a bigger contract somewhere else. Something it's
right.
Come pick up your shit, your cores, everything, and find somebody else to do it for you because we have a bigger contract. That's what they had to do.
Yeah.
And they only build manufacture maybe 1,000 cases a year, 2,000. I don't know what it is, but they're always like supply and demand. Summit might have bought 400 of them, and if you're one of the lucky people who were not 80th in line to get one, hopefully you get it sooner than later because you have transmissions to build, and But if they messed up 200 or 250 of these things, and now
back of the line real quick,
So that's it. There's stuff like that happens, and it's all custom. It's all exotic stuff. It's all custom manufactured, specific materials.
That's a tough situation to be in because, like, how do you grow that market? That's a
you
tough
can
one.
kill a business entirely just by going, never mind.
Yeah.
But I always wondered how that was, what that was like, because we're using, like you said, we're using technology. We're using a Ford 9-inch, using a TH400. Like, these things have been around for millions of years, and they're not making them anymore at Ford or GM.
Yep.
So, we're relying on those people to remake that stuff.
Yeah. Hopefully it carries on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to be. I mean, there's no
TH400s
shortage.
are like freaking...
They're still out there.
Yeah, well, they seem to be a hot thing right now.
Well, yeah.
I'm sure they always have been, but they're throwing them in everything.
Yeah, it's like the LS.
Yeah.
Who doesn't own a dozen of them? If you're an LS guy, you probably got 6 under the bench. You know? That's one fizzles, just throw another one in it. And 400s are like nice like that too because they're cross universal. I can take parts out of this 400 and put it in that one. And so a lot of the stuff it's multi-platform. Drag cars, mud trucks, it's a solid transmission to begin with. So,
would you daily drive one just to settle some other debates we've seen?
Yeah, well, I got that Mustang is going to get a Godzilla. I got a brand new crate engine down at Racecraft.
Okay.
They're going to make a K member for it, and so that Turbo 400 for that car is sitting over there next to the big block.
Okay.
So 400 for that one. There's a 400 for the big block, and so I'm gonna street drive the shit out of that thing, and so I got a 4L80 on the other side over there. Just wackerdoodle the bell housing off and put a modular bell housing on it. Just go that way and just put a 4L80 in there. So I mean, you can't deny that 4L80s, 400s, glides, they work perfectly fine for what their application is. And for street driving and all that stuff, I'd rather have a 4L80 in my car than in even a 10-speed. Just based on complexity alone. So it's a great transmission to transplant. Where a 6L80 was, I built a lot of 4L80s that
there used to be a 6L80 behind that car, or in that GTO, or whatever it is, a Camaro. Trucks too, same thing. 6L80. I mean, there's got so many problems that you have to build out of it. It'll take you $8,000 to like finalize it and still have Tecum issues, still have 4, 5, 6 clutch issues.
Right.
Put a 4L80 in it, it's good to 1,500 horsepower all day long for a decade. I'll see you in 10 years. It's time for a refresh. So it's hard to deny and hard to beat that. So it's just by design. They did a really good job with it.
Yeah.
So the purist, I just quoted Jarrett Bowen a transmission, a 6-speed. That's a lot of money, for we want 1,200 wheel horsepower with a 6-speed. It's going to take parts. It's going to take materials. It's going to require some science. They're not cheap, and
No.
I still do them. They're always cheaper than what you can buy them from. There's a shop out there. Was it Midnight Performance? I think it is.
Yeah, we went to go visit them.
Did you really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they good people?
We didn't talk to him too much. Our
Okay.
buddy was picking up a twin turbo kit from him, so we got to talk to him a little bit.
Oh, okay. I didn't know I have no idea who they are, what they do. I know they sell transmissions. I don't know if they build them there themselves.
Oh yeah, who was it? Is it PPG or no, not PPG. Fuck, what do they run in those? It's like Pure or whatever.
Oh, Pure Drivetrain Solutions.
That's
Yeah.
what it is.
Yep.
I think that's what they run in those. But
Okay.
yeah, I think he sells them on behalf or some sort of deal. Like
Okay.
basically, if
Yep.
our buddy wants one for his twin turbo
Sure.
truck or single cab he's building, he would go through him.
Yeah, you would get
Okay.
they're called the Midnight Performance
Yeah.
transmissions.
Okay. So I don't know if they're like an actual shop.
We were at a shop. They are not building transmissions at the shop we were
Okay,
at.
okay,
So
okay,
I'm
okay.
not sure. I'm assuming that's an outsourced
It's some
thing
partnership or some
Yeah.
sort
Okay.
of deal, right? Yeah, I don't know.
like
A
a
lot of-
vendor type thing, maybe.
Yep. Okay. So and like to compare their product, it's the same parts I'm going to put in it, same build.
Yeah.
Chances are, I normally there's a big 4L80 guy down in Texas. But either way, to build something similar to his, you can use a pricing matrix for it. An $8,000 transmission. I mean, it's no more than $6,000. It's not a big deal, but you're not paying for the name and the sticker. That's the big thing. And half the time for that same transmission, I'll put more parts in it than what he would. I always overbuild everything. Why would you build for something just to meet expectations?
Yeah.
Transmission is the last spot to even cheap out on something.
No.
Yeah.
Or put an extra part in it that is going to need it, or something that's going to make it more reliable or dependable. And just by composition alone, if you need an overdrive planet, it needs it. It's part of the deal. You want a 1,500 horsepower transmission, it needs this part.
Okay.
Or when do you want it to fail? Bring it back to me in 3 weeks. As far as I care, I'll go through it again.
So, okay, you raise a good topic there, right? Because a lot of the times we hear, especially like when it comes to certain platforms, all right, it's good for 800 or 900 or it's good for 12 or 15. When do you know it's like, because you don't fall in that it's good enough category. When do you know it's time to, start overbuilding?
Based on what you're going to be doing with it, and the weight of the vehicle. A lot of stuff for basic transmission science would go for what's its intended purpose. Are you drag racing it? You need a trans brake. The trans brake adds a lot of extra forces to something that never was going to be there in the first place. You're hydraulically binding the thing up and mechanically binding it, and then all of a sudden just releasing it, and all of a sudden it's gone. So that's a lot of torque off the bat. So a 6-speed transmission, they have the 6R80 has a solenoid jumper, the transmission to have a trans brake, from what I understand. I've never done it. I don't see any setup. I just built the things. And so if somebody's going to be doing that, well, we need better shafts. We're going to need a better intermediate shaft for sure, especially clutches too. So your horsepower has to meet your expectations for the build. If you're going to have a 1,500 horsepower car, you're going to need more clutch capacity. You're going to need better clutches. You're going to need more, better hard parts. So some stuff is known, like your 10 speeds. They're good to 1,000 horsepower stock. Throw a converter in it, and the thing's like matched to your engine, and it's good to go for quite a while. They're really reliable.
I think Joanna was 12 or 1,400. I think.
Yeah, she's in the 8s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
do a
now she's
10
getting a
speed.
TH400.
Yeah.
Oh, going for more?
Yeah.
Must be,
Yeah.
That or reliability. So.
No, it was still. She took it out. She claims it's still shifting like the day one.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
They're really a good strong transmission, and once it's built, and like I say, some of the stuff that's nowadays is hot in the market is going to be expensive. Your planets, your drums, your billet parts are going to be expensive because nobody's got really getting into the 10R80 stuff yet, and they are, but the product availability. Nobody makes a main shaft for it yet. When do they need it? Nobody knows what its capabilities are yet because we haven't run 2,000 horsepower through one yet. So basic knowledge of science of these things means that it just dictates you need more clutch material. You need more surface area for the clutches to hold power. So you have an input shaft that's trying to rotate 6,000, 4,000, whatever RPM. Your clutches have to sandwich on to get your shift to happen. It's just a stacked synchronous shift most of the time. So the next clutch that comes off or the next clutch that comes on has to be synchronized. It's got to be perfectly tied. And if it binds up, you're gonna put extra force into a shaft where if it was a stock shaft, it'll break. It'll just snap in half. So you increase the change the composition of the material, and now it suits a purpose. So now you have the next weakest link, the input shaft and a forward hub and a 400 and a 480. Change those two, and you're good to 1,000 horsepower as long as you have the proper line pressure, as long as you have the proper, up to the par hard parts, and as long as you have a line, clutches. As long as it's there. I mean, you can use stock stuff to 1,000 horsepower, change the forward hub and then the input shaft, and you should be good. So. The next weakest link, it depends if it's a second gear lever, manual valve body, second gear lever. Now you need a billet main shaft because the main shaft that was in there is now weak material. Now you have to put either a 300M, a Vasco, an Aramet, or a 300 Miragin shaft in there. Could be a NASA shaft too. But do you want to spend $1,000 on a main shaft that's good to 4,000 horsepower that you'll never even see or use, or do you want something that's just a 4340 just a step above factory, but it should be good for 1,500 horsepower all day long. Now you change gear ratio, you're putting it into a mud truck. I don't know why somebody would put a 480 in one, but you put it into a mud truck, a totally different application. You'll never need it. Just a stock main shaft would work just fine. So depends on what you're doing.
So I see a monster truck up there. Have you ever done anything for one of those before or no? I guess what's the most intense application you've built something for?
Boy, I'd have to think about that. No, not a pure monster truck. No, swamp donkeys. Yeah, just your typical big block Chevy swamp donkeys with nitrous. 1,500 horsepower cars or trucks. Swamp donkeys. Generic mud trucks. Not like a trophy trucks. I mean, I've done one for a trophy truck, but it's like these are just Turbo 400. That's how Reed Racing got into business, was doing that. They needed an application where they needed a heavy duty case. Okay, so now their trophy trucks, 4-wheel drive stadium trucks are a little bit different, but just because we're in swamps everywhere in Minnesota, Wisconsin, there's mud trucks all the way around here. But I mean, just stock 400 really kind of works really well for that. It upgrades some hard parts, but I mean, like the biggest application, I mean, like garbage trucks, like an Allison, the world-class Allisons are huge. You take the torque converter apart, it'd fill up this whole bench. Just the cover, the pump cover.
Really? Okay.
Wow.
Oh, they're huge.
Like garbage trucks that pick up trash?
Yep.
Oh, Dan knows all about those.
Yeah. I just turned in front of one the other day and
boy.
My truck got hit. So yeah. That was one of those, like, I'm a pretty good, I don't crash a lot, but there was just a fucking Monday morning situation. I wasn't paying attention. And
weren't awake yet?
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah, no, it happens.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Didn't see it coming, huh?
Yeah, no, I did not.
Didn't see the dump truck going down the All right.
Anyway, as far as I know, the transmission's fine on that one.
Good.
It's got a few scuffs on the front of it now.
Do you know a body guy at least? Did you get clipped, like T-boned, or?
I was trying to cut across the lane, which I shouldn't have been doing anyway, and I fucking turned and...
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I just got my front end a little bit, but I'm going to fix it.
Still driving it though, right?
It's not pretty, but yeah, I drove it around a little bit.
That's good.
Yeah.
There's some stuff out there that all of a sudden it just shows up, you just happen to do it.
So you can do pretty much anything then? Do you do anything like DSG or DCT wise or no?
No, I've gone in the realm of the Ford CFTs, CFT 30s.
Okay.
The Ford Taurus X first started using that CVT a long time ago. I mean, 2000, whatever it was. I've been through dozens of those. The Nissan, the smaller Nissan, there's two different sizes. I forget what they're called, but the big brother and the little brother Nissans, I've done plenty of those, and it's a CVT, so it's a glorified snowmobile. That's all it is. It's a chain, but it's a belt. They've had plenty of problems with them. They're kind of like more or less predominantly a disposable transmission. So when the
we heard a lot. You're talking
Yeah.
about like the Nissan and all that stuff.
Yeah, there's a reason why they're not really sticking around, or
So that's why Nissan's in trouble. So.
Are they in trouble? Really?
Oh,
I don't know anything about it, but
Nissan's been just struggling. Like they were talking about getting sold to Honda and all this stuff, and like a lot of people in the comments are like, "Yeah, it's a stupid transmission. Nobody wants that car."
yeah, no.
Yeah.
They're stuck with it. You know, they've been using it forever. It's the first time I did one, there's no published information on it. There could be now from the dealership, but is either they were hiding it, but they really can't legally. They can't tell you how to work on the vehicle.
Oh, you know what I just remembered? So we had Ashley Vaughn on the show. She worked at a Nissan dealership, and when they were warranting them, they had an entire wall of transmissions sent back to throw away.
Yep.
Like it was just ridiculous.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, it's a disposable deal.
Yeah.
Then they started getting wise on it, started actually selling parts. But by the time you need the pulley and the variator and the chain or belt, it's at $5,000.
Yeah.
Just buy a box unit from Nissan anyways, which is brand new. So it's like I say, it was a disposable deal. If they didn't have any published data on how to take it apart, the service manual or anything, it should be a no-go. It should be a no-brainer, but everyone's doing them, you know, and I quit doing them probably 6-7 years ago.
Okay.
It was only because of the shop I was working for, actually, we were doing them. I've still got some specialty tools and all the stuff to do it. I wouldn't do one today.
But you're not doing any dual clutch stuff, though?
No.
Okay.
Manual transmissions, you've screwed around with those
I gave
too?
those up a long time ago, too.
Oh, really?
I'll do it. Oh, yeah. There's just, they're hard to get parts for it.
Okay.
I love them. My first drag car had a TKO faceplated in it, in the Fox body. That was a ton of fun. I mean, I've never had more fun in a car, just shifting gears, just going through going on the strip. But to get a Tremec part, I went through a couple T56s here 3-4 years ago, and to even get the parts, Tremec quit making them. You know, the last one I did was for a GTO 5 or something.
Okay.
And they quit making parts, and the parts you're going to get come from China.
Yeah.
So unless it's because they don't make the T56 anymore, you know, it went on to production I don't know how long ago, but it's a 6060 now. I think maybe they're done with that now too. But so Hanlon Motorsports used to be the place to get the stuff, and they would have like sourced parts, so they have they're again core parts that they could sell you. You know, so it's fine if it's just another used part, but if it's prone for inherent weakness problems, like the output shaft on this thing, or the main shaft on it was known for issues. That's why it was only used for 2 or 3 years. So depending on what casting number, what specification you got for the transmission for the part you need, there's a reason that they probably quit making it, and it's just hard to get. So no aftermarket company has picked up the Tremec parts in the first place.
Right.
It's kind of proprietary to a little bit, but. And there's aftermarket companies doing it. So unless you send your transmission to somebody East Coast, West Coast, or somebody you know local who's like a specialist in this stuff, it's hard to get parts for. So there's people I can refer to want something done. Call this guy. You know. So I've done many of them. I mean, many thousands of them. They're just. It takes 5 minutes just to set up the press just to press a cluster off. I can have an automatic transmission whipped up by the time I get the thing apart. Press the part. There's press plates. There's all sorts of specialty tools involved. It's not a big deal, but it's just a process.
No, Bowen's going through an MT82 for me right now, and it's been a while, but yeah, I think I'm getting an input shaft because we couldn't get the gears off of the other one. So.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So, they still make that? Are they using that transmission still?
They are, I believe, in the new ones. I'm not 100% sure, but I bought a bunch of hardened parts and things, so we're building it a little bit better.
Good.
And
yeah. I know I've never built one. Similar, you know, things like it. You know, it's nothing that's never been done before. You know, you crack one open, it looks the same as many others.
Yep.
But I know they have inherent problems too. You know, like the rail, the shifter section, I guess, is pretty weak. You know.
Oh yeah, I did a shifter right away on it, so it had an MGW on it, but I grabbed third gear in a Whipple 5.0, and yeah, I hit her real hard and took every tooth off of it.
Yeah. And when that happens too, I mean, you're wiping out just not that one part, but they're hardened parts. So yeah, it fragments and ruins other stuff. So no different than this stuff, you know, same thing. But
Jarrett was impressed with my destruction, so yeah.
I'm sure it's not the first one, but still, no, I mean. I've seen them apart. I've had people ask me for them, you know, MT82s, and I've got the press. I've got, you know, press plates to get all the clusters and the gears off and everything. I choose. I don't want to, you know. Yeah. I gave up. Last manual I did. I mean, I'll do select ones, you know, Mopars or, you know, Ford top loader or something. I've done many of them, so I just rather choose not to. Like imports and over domestic stuff, transaxle stuff, unless it's for a shop or somebody just mom and pop general stuff. You know, I'm not gonna do a Hyundai, a Mitsubishi, you know, anything that comes on a Kia. I think it's probably a Hyundai anyways, but still, you know, there's a lot of stuff. You just pick and choose your battles and choose what you're good at and focus on that. So
if you can work on, let's say, 3 transmissions for the rest of your life, which 3 would they be? If this is your perfect customers.
It feels like I'm already doing it. Like,
yeah.
4L80s for sure. I mean, 4L80s are, I do dozens a year, you know, just for very high horsepower. I just did, there's one outside that's ready to go. I did those two at the same time. Both of them are 1,500 horsepower cars. One's a truck, but both built for 1,500 horsepower, and it's very common, and you know, I do a lot of them. They're fun to build, you know, like Fords. I like building C6s. You know, I've got some really badass C6s out there, all rollarized, 4/100 parts in it, all custom machine stuff, fully rollarized and everything. But 6-pinion planets from this Super Duty stuff transplanted into a 60 whatever case, you know, C6. You know, supercharged whatever, you know, Broncos or mud trucks, whatever it is, they're fun to build. So I mean, there's really not one specifically. I mean, I build so many of these damn things. I mean, they're here all the time. You know, I do dozens a year, and a lot of them it's so easy to whip up for a 1,500 horsepower build. And they work great stock for 800 horsepower. Just change an input shaft if you want to, and even stock ones still will work fine. So it's not really. It doesn't really matter which ones I'm doing because they all get the same amount of love and attention that it needs to go into every single part. The pump halves still get everything that needs to get done on every single one. You know, unless it's like a billet badass pump or a build, but there's not a lot to do with that to fix. You know, you use $12,000 worth of Cohen's parts, and what am I supposed to do with it? Just make sure it looks good or it's supposed to go together right. There's some stuff I have to change or I still rearrange, but I'm not going to remachine or re-engineer their product. You know, so some of that stuff it is kind of like, yeah, you do have to do some drilling here and there, but I'm not really machining parts for that application. So, you know, anything, 3,000 horsepower PowerGlide, enjoy just as much as anything else, you know. And it's not going to leave the door by tomorrow, you know, or it's going to stay here, you know, like 2 months, you know, as parts trickle in or jump from this one to this one. And it depends on, like I say, whatever stuff shows up too. So 4L80s, I mean, they're just fun to build. I really don't have a preference, but as a Ford guy who builds 90% of everything GM, I'm kind of stuck, you know, but whatever, it doesn't matter to me. So.
Well, I've had almost solely Fords my entire life, and to be honest with you, the amount of transmission problems I've had over the years are very minimal. You know, I have a 4R70W in an Expedition that went out, but I was using it to plow on an Expedition. So like I was doing things I shouldn't have been doing.
Plow on an Expedition.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, the bread and butter of the industry has always been GM stuff, always. I mean, I used to do, I mean, for the last, 20 years now, as a transmission guy, 3 to 4 4L60s a week was very common. You know, that was the bread and butter of the industry.
Gentlemen, size matters. And no, this is not a Blue Chew ad. We are not that big yet. However, if you do want to show off some size, get a more bigger turbo t-shirt at Minnoxide.com. Let's get back to the show.
So like today, now current stuff, the 6L80 is now the bread and butter. You know, they're everywhere, than every vehicle. They also need a bunch of extra attention too. So, but they last longer. They can handle more power, more torque. So, you know, as time goes on, 700 R4 came out in 1982, was used in the, upgraded to the 4L60, and then the 4L60, 570, whatever it is. Same transmission more or less, but what did they go to, 2011, 2009? So, I mean, there's different iterations of the same transmission, but when they came out with the 6L80, you can run 3 times the amount of power you could ever think about in a 4L60 in a stock transmission now. So it's come a long ways. So, I mean, they realize that people are doing stuff with these things that they want it reliable, and reliability means it has to be built to withhold extra abuse. That's what we're doing with these things. So as long as it's built to sustain abuse, and it's built above and beyond what they're really going to be doing with it, it stands to reason that it's going to be a better product to begin with.
Well, look at these manufacturers. The OEMs now are coming out with cars that are 700,000 horsepower stock. So they need to do something.
Yep. So I mean, they realize it too, and some of the racing stuff. like Godzilla, for instance. You know, Brian Wolf. He was part of the engineering of the engine. He's been a Ford race guy forever. He's been, factory Ford racing in MRA back in the day. I mean, I remember going through Race Page magazines when they were actually a magazine back in the day, 20, 30 years ago almost. And these guys are getting it done. Well, he retired from Ford, helped co-engineer the Godzilla, and but he's using it in his platform for his Fox body, his race car. He's got just under 2,000 horsepower through a Godzilla. And getting it done. And when these guys are developing this stuff in the factory to make it go out the door, they're anticipating that people are going to be put superchargers on them. They sell them. Ford Racing sells this stuff. They sell performance packs for these engines and all this stuff. They always have. So they kind of know that there's things that need to get done, and people are going to do something else with this. So it's nice to see that they're still intermingled with the performance side of things too.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much of it. I mean, the LS is a lot of parts interchange from the LS to the Godzilla. Lifters, for instance, are just drop in. Exact.
Oh, really?
Exact. Yep.
Okay.
So the lifters I ordered, they're just an LS, short travel or whatever lifter, Johnson lifter for an LS. We just change it. You're going to do a link rod or link bar instead of the buckets. But Ford, their block is like an LS, the 6-bolt mains, deep skirt block. The crank is in the middle of the block. It's a huge 60 millimeter journal. It's a big crank or a big camshaft. And now, I don't know why, they went to the way of the GM, and now you can't get the lifters out without pulling the heads off.
Oh, really?
Ford forever, you just take the manifold off, and the lifters will come out once you do the rockers.
Yeah.
You don't have to take the heads off. Who does something like that? That's the LS world. You can't get the lifters out without pulling the heads out.
Well,
right?
I remember a lot of Ford, like small block Ford kits, the valve covers came with those easy twist off T-handle things, so you could just get in there real quick.
And maintenance, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. That was a thing. Like Friday night, before you go out on a Friday night, you set your lash. Just make it convenient and easy. But no, I mean they've come such a long ways to have. I mean, granted, Ford's always gone the way of having shit rods and pistons, so you got to put new rods and pistons and stuff nowadays. But if it had a forged bottom end, it'd be great. But now the forged crankshaft it's forged. It's like the Coyotes. They're good to 2,000 horsepower stock. Be done with it. But like the old Cobra days or the old 4.6 days, you still have to add rods and pistons to go past even what RPM you want or whatever power level you want. So you still have to do that today. But I mean, it's still a much better product than what you had from the 302 days. What they split it 500 horsepower. Now you got 2-piece block.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I mean, they went through some small block Ford issues, but stuff happens. It's just the way it goes. But all these manufacturers, they're still making stuff and making improvements on it. And, unless they're going to ditch the platform like the 8-speed. It was here and now it's gone, and it's not here to stay. So it's going to be hard to duplicate stuff like the 4L80 that was around forever. It was a reiteration of a 400 since 1967. So technology wise, people are going to start having issues or want to run more power than what the stock transmissions are good for, or have problems running the electronics, and they're going to have to go back to a 4L80. We do it all the time.
Yeah.
Just a swap, even resto mods. It's cool to see that people don't want a million horsepower, and they're satisfied and realize that 800 horsepower nowadays works just fine.
Yeah.
You're not going to go light the world on fire at a racetrack, but 800 horsepower in a street car, you'll have fun. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
And to have something like a resto mod truck, 50s truck, or whatever it is, put a complete complete takeout from one vehicle or an express van and put it in something else and have it work fine with this 6-speed is all you could ask for. And it's more power, or has more power and performance than what something would have been 20 years ago if you used a takeout from a 4.8 or 5.3 Chevy with a 4L60. So
well, doing all of that and still getting 15 miles to the gallon or more, right?
Yeah.
That stuff from back in the day was like 400 horsepower and 2 miles to the gallon.
And, and it had to be loud and rowdy and obnoxious. So and not very reliable and dependable. So you build it up, and you still have to make. You want a 700 horsepower 4L60, you'll still have to spend $7,000 to do it. How many times do you want to do it? We can make it work on the dyno once, and I could probably use a lot of stock components to make it happen. But you want to actually make it like shift and hold power while you're actually using it. It's a little bit different story than just make a pull in a third gear. So, it kind of depends on what you're doing there again. What are you doing with it, and how long? How much abuse are you really going to give it, and how long do you want it to last? So if you want to cheap out on components, and there's places to do it and places not to do it. So and like I say, the factory stuff it's great to see all this stuff. It's just progressing, just continually, just goes, and like the 10 speeds. I don't think it's going to go any higher than that, but I mean, some people have 12 speeds. Chrysler had a 12 speed, and and I wouldn't want to try to make it for performance. It's not really designed for it or anything, but I guess it works really well. But it's got its limitations like everything else. So are you gonna dedicate your build or whatever your resto mod into like a Mercedes swap, or some people do the Hellcat thing and put a Hellcat into something and want to use the 8-speed transmission from it? I wouldn't. 480.
Yeah.
Just be done with it. Just get rid of the complexity of it all together. So, but like I say, Sean, he's really setting the world on fire with the Haltech stuff. With that, it's good to see.
Yeah, we had a good conversation yesterday about some stuff that's coming down the Corvette pipeline. So that's gonna be really cool.
Mm-hmm. And like I say, there it comes back to the engineers, the designers.
Yeah.
If they're able to build a transmission that's more efficient, more effective, holds more power, and it's more reliable, everyone's a winner. You can't go wrong, unless parts are it's $10,000 for an overhaul. I mean, there's standpoints of it, but yeah, it comes to the realization that hopefully you pick a platform and you can stay with it. It's not going to be around for just 2 years, and then you go to move it onto something else. And by the time people are pulling this stuff out of the junkyards, and you just go buy one we used to get these for like $50. Not anymore. Everyone knows what they're worth. So you can't get a good core hardly anymore, especially around here. But if you choose to go with a platform that's you're going to transplant something, or want to design something to have just a hot rodder, some guy who puts it in a Willys or whatever. If you're going to dedicate that vehicle to that platform, hopefully it's a good platform to stick with. So it is tried and true. 488s is a good platform. 400 is a good platform. So I mean, there's across the board. There's a many platform. I'm not an import guy, so I'm sure there's a lot of transmissions out there that work well for them. The 400 horsepower transaxles, whatever. There's got to be a ton of them. I mean, what else is somebody else using? I mean, you're not going to put a 400 in something that's front wheel drive. So I know
we'll find a way.
I know there is something, but like I say, it's a whole other world of the realm of it. I don't even get involved in. So,
is there anything, whether it's OEM or aftermarket, is there anything coming in the near future that you're excited for?
No, not really. The concepts are there. A lot of stuff doesn't stick to paper.
Okay.
I still drive the Loser Cruiser or the Crown Vic out there just because it's an old, dependable, reliable vehicle.
Yeah.
I try not to buy anything that's just new off the line. I don't want anything that's not proven. There's a lot of stuff that I put some thought into, like getting a vehicle. There's Escorts I wouldn't buy. There's Fusions I wouldn't buy. But one I bought for my wife, it's a great platform, great engine. Everything else across the board it fits the bill. But there's really not. Some of the stuff is so technologically advanced. I don't want it in the first place.
Right.
And I should have ordered a new Super Duty a couple of years ago.
But I mean, more so like in your world, like in the transmission world. Is there anything like from the big names that they're coming out with that is interesting, or not really?
No, I'm not. No, there's nothing that I really care about.
Okay.
That's I even see.
Okay.
What's here is good enough to me.
That's what I was gonna say.
I don't have the EPA down my back, trying to get every bit of economy out of these things, and I'm not using it for the intended purposes anyways. So we're turning it up a bit. But
off-road use only over here.
Yeah, exactly. So, but from it's just the standpoint of like the 10-speed.
Okay.
It's a great transmission. Like I say, I've never built one for performance for the Camaro guys or whatever they're using them in, the trucks and everything. We haven't gone down that avenue yet, but there's no reason not to. It's a great platform, and I don't know what's coming down next. I have no idea. I'm sure it's coming down to like the electronic bullshit or the electric vehicles and just the transmissionless, wonders. So there's not going to be a lot of drivetrain stuff that's going to be like revolutionary. Nothing that I can imagine. The CVTs were here and kind of still here. I don't know who's still using it today. I don't. Probably Honda is.
Yeah, I think that's
maybe
just
Toyota.
about it. I think. Yeah,
Is Nissan still? I don't know.
I'm not sure if they've given up on that yet.
Nissan's, they think they're really struggling. Like they're looking for
I
a
know that
way
the
out.
Honda CVTs that's in the what's it called, in the Civics or whatever. I think that's still around, but
I've never done one. So.
I know they're still playing around with the concept of like CVTs with like gears. I watched a cool video on that recently, but we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah. There's always ways to maximize something. You know.
Yeah.
You ever driven a CVT vehicle?
No, I haven't.
I mean, other than a side-by-side four-wheeler or
Yeah,
snowmobile.
it's the same thing.
Yeah,
You just put the pedal down and just the RPMs go up and just stay there. Like,
Yeah.
You're expecting it to shift, but you just keep accelerating and it's just going. It's just a weird sensation when you expect something to shift, and I don't know how they're more efficient. I still don't understand that. Just because if you're going to be doing straight, consistent 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 RPM to get to a point. When RPMs drop, I mean, you're changing gear ratio. Yet, I mean, there's only 4 ratios to change infinitely. There's thousands more gear ratios to choose from with it, but it's not a perfect application throughout all of it. So, once you change, you're not going to race a CVT transmission in a vehicle.
No.
I've never heard of it. I mean, I don't know if anybody makes a high stall converter for a Nissan. So Nissan CVT or even a Honda, so that kind of defeats the purpose. It's meant for efficiency and economy. It's meant to go from gas station to grocery store or home.
Right.
It's not meant to be like performance or beat on or anything. And like I say, that's kind of why I don't think they last very well either, or long either. So I mean. When you have a transmission that's prone for failures, I think the earliest one I ever did was 70,000, 65,000 miles on a CVT.
Jeez.
And, I mean, some of the times at the dealer, they don't even leave the dealership. And
Basically brand new. Or is brand new.
Yeah, right. And that's the problem. Like these really probably shouldn't have come to the public yet. It happens a lot.
It does blow my mind sometimes, like how crazy, like how well developed some things are, and in other things it's just like, oh yeah, let's just put this garbage out there. It's like, how does this happen at a level where it's costing them hundreds of millions of dollars? But
they just all of a sudden realize it. Like they probably most of the big wigs probably don't even realize it that it's happening. Now the bean counters behind there, cutting costs left and right, but. Like the 6T70, for instance, this 3.5R wave plate. If they chose to decide save a tenth of a penny per unit, how much did you actually save?
Yeah.
The customer didn't save anything. You didn't save anything either. With all the lawsuits and everything, and the transmission that was prone for failure. So it happens. Every single one of them, every single transmission off the line. I don't care if it's every vehicle off the line has got inherent problems with it right before it even it takes to a customer. So and everyone's a guinea pig. Everyone. You can't buy. I don't buy something first thing off the line. I refuse to.
First years are never a good idea.
No, and even like used, I choose to buy everything. At least 1 year old. Last vehicle I bought was brand new. What was it, 2000? No, 99, 98. So everything else has been, 1 year old or something's got 10, 15,000 miles on it. I don't want to be the schmuck to take the dive on it anyways, just buy it new. If I got the opportunity.
New in 1998?
I was an Escort, ZX2.
Okay.
Yeah. So after I was looking for fuel economy. Actually, no, that was a lease. Yeah, that was a lease car. So, but it was new nonetheless. I was working at Ford at the time. I was like, I need one of these. And I was driving my truck, my F-250, 10-inch lift, big 40-inch mutter tires on it with a 460 and a C6. Great high school truck, just to get pulled over all the time. And Stillwater cops had it out for me. They see you coming. How do you miss a truck that 10-inch lift and 40s and loud and obnoxious? So, but that was my high school truck. And then once I was driving it back and forth to work out of high school, I was like, I need something better than this. And twice a week, filling up, almost 80 gallons a week, just driving it as a high school kid. Yeah. No, we're done.
Yeah.
So I was working at Ford at the time and as a mechanic, and then they had it sitting there. I was like, shit, this would be perfect. And so, but I was just a 2 year lease on that deal, and then I bought my Thunderbird. So back to like fuel efficient kind of cars a little bit, but still, it's one of those things where you gotta have a necessity for it.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to try to choose something where it wasn't going to be brand new. It's not the state of the art something or other. My dad's done that quite a bit. You buy something, like what the hell was it? The Fiero. What a mistake that car is.
Yeah, I know, right?
And then what was it? The next car that he bought was a Lemon, and it's not very practical for kids. And somebody without kids, Fiero would be great, or somebody who doesn't have to drive it with four passengers, perfect.
Yeah.
So they didn't have that very long, but then they got a 90 or an 87 Grand Prix. It was a Grand Prix something or other. But it had what was it? It was a lemon. It was actually a lemon buyback. That car, it was in the dealership more than we owned it. You know, it was just nothing but problems, electrical issues left and right. Because it's a GM product. You know,
Yeah.
GM and electrical, they don't really do very well.
Well, Chrysler doesn't really have a good deal for that either.
No. So yeah, either way, I mean, there's this overly complex. There's buttons everywhere. You know, it was a state of the art. You know, whatever the hell it was, and everyone back in the '80s was always about buttons and features and lights and all this other shit. And so that car didn't last long, but it was always, you know, brand new car. This was a brand new car. That's a brand new car, and you know, you have to live through the problems too. So I don't want to keep dropping the thing off at the dealership or let somebody else work on my car after I just bought it. So no, I'll buy something that's already proven, used, maybe has a transmission in it, you know. So just like the Crown Vic. Well, somebody else's problems, not mine.
You know they depreciate anyway, so like if you just wait a year, you're gonna save tens of thousands of dollars a lot of time.
$10,000 on this one.
Yeah.
Just a year and a half old or whatever. It's like, I'm glad I didn't go new just to get the 2% less on my loan. It's like, just ridiculous. But
before I had that Super Duty, I had a 2015 Lincoln MKT.
Okay.
The touring version with the, you know, cool car. It was great. Fit all my airplanes in there and everything, and the kids, you know. Yeah. All-wheel drive, twin turbo, you know, 3.5. So it was a great vehicle. What was it? It was a 15. I bought it in seven. No, I bought it in 19 because the truck is 19. I bought it in 19. It was a $55,000 car. I paid $24 for cash.
Luxury vehicles, they take the biggest hit.
It was a lease deal. Some elderly couple had it, and it was in mint condition. Had 26,000 miles on it. I got rid of it with 55 because I was scared of the timing chains and the water pump. It's a 10-hour water pump. Yeah. Holy crap! I don't want to deal with this. So I mean, you know, even all the mixture valves and all the stuff in the dashboard. It was an awesome car. I love that car. Great amenities and everything, but I just don't want to work on, you know, the high-end maintenance side of it, you know, too. So got rid of it. Just got my Super Duty instead because I needed a truck to tow the camper. So, but still, it used, you know, 2 years. I think it was 2 years old or 3 years old, and it was less than sticker price on the vehicle. I stole it, and I still sold it for $22,000. Wow. So I traded it on the truck on that. So it was perfect. You know, it cost me $3,000 to own the thing, including title and all that stuff and taxes. Perfect. You know, you can't lease a vehicle that cheap. Plus, I had a ton of fun in the car. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. So, you know, 5,000-pound vehicle, but you know, still, you know, we turned it up a little bit. But
well, that one, those had the 3.5 EcoBoost in them too, right?
That was twin turbo.
Yeah.
So that was
the same thing in my Navigator there. We were looking at MKTs too because they have the third row.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. I love the car. I would like to find another one. Probably not. They had a different engine in there too. It depends on the year too, but it wasn't a great vehicle. I mean, it was a really good car, but very complex. It had more amenities and stuff in there that I really didn't care for. This when I order a truck, if I spec a vehicle or something, if I go that route, I'm not going to look for something that has all this other bullshit in there. You know, like the lane assist and all that stuff. I don't want. I almost got in a wreck with the Lincoln in that because somebody in front of me, I was gradually turning, you know, doing 65 miles an hour down the interstate. There's a gradual turn. Somebody turned off to the left in the left turn lane. My yaw sensor obviously didn't realize that there's somebody over there, and they went over this direction. I'm in my lane doing just fine. All of a sudden, cruise control was on. All of a sudden, all these lights and, you know, everything starts blinking on the dashboard, and it like almost locks up the tires for me. I couldn't. I'm turning. I couldn't find, you know, disable to turn the cruise control off fast enough because I thought I was going to rear end somebody. They just turned over here in that lane, so it didn't really know that they were over there. It could sense that there was a vehicle there. That's why it went through this bullshit and conniption fit. But the people behind me, they're damn near locking up their brakes and had to change reaction because my brakes. I'm just cruising around the highway. So
been there, done that with mine too. Our little friends rally last year when I was coming up on a bright colored R8, I almost went into the back of it because it locked up my tires on me. I'm like, I got decent tires. I can control this.
Sure.
Let's not lock up and freak out now. Yeah. But anyways, as we kind of start to wind down here, that was a quick 2 hours, man.
Really? 2 hours? Yeah.
Dude, that was cooking. But
I'm about to put you guys to work. We got other stuff to do. I'm going to learn how to build a transmission.
And you know, we could obviously go on forever here, but as we start to wind down, is there anything that you think, because you mentioned at the beginning of this episode, it's a very small community that you guys have in the transmission world. I mean, how do you get more people involved on that side of things? Because it seems like everybody wants to go on YouTube and learn how to do an LS in 30 minutes. Like, how do you get more people into this side?
Just get your hands dirty. It just has to be a person. Somebody has to be personally accountable for it and want to be able to just get their hands in it, buy a transmission. Some people have just went to the junkyard, found a Turbo 350, gone through it. And
what's the best one to start on? To start learning?
Anything. GM, it doesn't matter. 400. If you have a 400, you have an actual application for this transmission. You have an actual reason to use it.
Okay.
Use what you're going to put in the vehicle and see how it works. See how it does. And then take it from cradle to grave. Just get involved in it and get it done. Take as many YouTube videos as you can to understand the process, or get it buy what are they called, the ATEC, not the transmission rebuilder book. Many of them are available, but if you had a lot of resources at you and actually just follow an instruction manual, it's really hard to go wrong. There's some stuff in there that it's technique, it's feel, it's experience. But if you are meticulous and you have the skill set to do it, it's really not a complicated ordeal. It's not. Okay. Pistons or engines, they have 8 pistons or pistons going up and down. It's just as very as simple as that. There's a lot of parts in there that have to intermingle and coincide with one another. But if they're fit right, there's no reason that it wouldn't work. If they're assembled right, there's no reason it wouldn't work. So just meticulous and be very thorough and clean about how you do stuff.
Okay.
Really, honestly, they're really simple.
They seem super complicated to me when I look at a valve body. Yeah. It reminds me of like if you pick a paver up off of the ground and you see the ants run underneath it as all these lines. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. So but there's instances where stuff is very simple. A manual valve body. It takes the circuits where it would normally look like it's very complicated.
Yeah.
It's not. There's nothing to these things.
Okay.
You got a separator plate and 8 different.
Oh yeah, that's way more simple than the last one I looked at.
A to B, A to B. So you have third clutch, reverse clutch, second clutch, and it's very simple once you break it down. Some of this stuff is obviously not in every transmission too, but check balls, and this is a trans brake application, 4L80, but still, the stock OE application is just the same. It just looks confusing. So if you actually study the circuits and of where everything went and how it looked, all it is fluid pressure. It has to go from here to here, or here to here, or here to here. So that's all it is. It's nothing more. So you just got to make sure everything it gets there. That's part of the problem of it. So some of the black science of it and some of the technology of it, it all just goes in hand with it too. So you put something on like that valve body on any 4L80, as long as the surface is flat, as long as you built it right, stands to reason it'll work. So you gotta, if you're gonna make an omelet, you gotta crack a few eggs. So if you really want to get after it, and you really have the technical inclining for it, it could be for anybody. It really could. It's not very complicated, but it's complicated. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on that you have to try it first to make sure it works or see if it actually functions. So. I used to lose a lot of sleep on these things. Like when I build them, because I want to make sure this is done, that's done, it's all right, it's proper, it's to spec. And so, even as a builder, first, taking my first crack at these, mom and pop shop, I went through 75 transmissions before I had the first problem.
Okay.
That's cradle to grave. that's I would say industry a really good reputation. So some people, if you have to redo every other transmission you build, you should probably take up basket weaving. Do something else. So there's a lot of times where it's not for the technically somebody who's not technically inclined, but anybody can get it done too. It just depends on how thorough you are, how meticulous you are, and how much of an understanding that it really takes to make them work and function. So
my dad did when we were a kid. What goes in a mid 90s like S15 or S10 with
700 R4.
Okay, so he did that, and then we didn't have reverse after that, but it did move forward.
Oh,
so
good.
He fixed some of the problems, but then we lost reverse.
It could be it could be like 300 different things. They are very complicated. It's not, like I say, it's not the easiest thing. There is a lot of catch-22s. You could flip a bearing over accidentally. I've done it. If it's possible, I've messed it up. We're all human. You are going to make a mistake. Something's going to get slipped through the cracks. Something at some point you take it apart. Now you're dealt with 500 pieces in front of you. it hopefully goes back together the way you had it. It came apart. Or a lot of times, I mean, this stuff is, I could build these blind, but we're talking like 20 years ago and stuff. We're accidentally all of a sudden, I just did it. Dave Rasmussen, one of Dave's. Unfortunately, I actually accidentally flipped the pump gear over. I asked them, I put them, I look at these things, I could have been on the phone, I don't know what I was doing. All of a sudden, he couldn't get the converter in all the way. I wonder what the problem is. So inner pump gear got flipped. I go over there, pull the pump out, take it apart, flip the inner pump gear over. It happens. I mean, as much of a professional as you are, as many thousands of transmissions you've ever built, you're still botch something. There's still going to be a problem, no matter what. It's unfortunately, but as simple, as stupid as that is, I've done thousands of them. I've never made the mistake, not once. I don't know why. And it's a 4L80. I mean, how do you mess that up? Every pump I take apart, I scribe it too. So there's an X there. Put the X's facing up. Hard to mess up. But all of a sudden, you miss a system, you miss a step, you miss something in your rhythm. Off, done, whatever. Now it goes out the door and had to get redone a little bit. But so unfortunately, I mean, stuff like that was going to happen no matter where you are, who you are, how much you put into that big block to have somebody else build it. They didn't put the right main bearings in it. Guys have been building engines since the 60s. How do you miss that step? So unfortunately, like I say, some stuff.
Sometimes you have an off day and you get hit by a garbage truck.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what you call that. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It happens. So I mean, there's if anybody's going to want to do it, just get one. Do it.
You just have to go for it.
Exactly. If you have a use for one, build something. Even if you have like a project car, just get with up the program and start tearing one apart and get the books and everything. But it's the only really honest way to do it. I didn't go to school at all. I'm secondhand taught, but I'm also self-motivated enough to make sure that I'm going to do it right and it's going to be done properly.
That makes sense.
So I never had like I say, I never went to I'm ASE certified, but not transmissions. I mean, I've never built one before I was even ASE certified. So
okay.
One of those things that anybody can pass a test. I can have a diploma on my wall, but it doesn't mean that you're really have what it takes to actually do one, or to be licensed to do it. But it's a passion. It's like anything. You don't have to go to school for half the stuff that's out there as long as you have the wits to do it yourself.
Yeah.
So, get one and do it. Go get your CVT or DCTs. Give it a whirl. See what happens. I mean, I've done this to the Focus ones. The transmission had the little dual clutch things. It didn't work out very well.
Yeah.
The factory tooling wasn't available and all that stuff. And I mean, the first like 3 or 4 worked fine, but then it got to the point where we couldn't even get parts for it anymore. So you had to like synchronize the DCT motor. So there's 2 clutch motors on the thing, and the last one was a catastrophe. And I haven't done one since. That was probably like 10 years ago. But then Ford went to the class action lawsuit, and they're all under warranty now. So they went through it almost 10 years ago now. Yeah, they went through a rash of shit because they're all junk. Every DCT Ford transmission that was out there only lasted maybe 20,000 miles. They had major issues. So they finally got it rectified, or just even quit making them altogether. So I don't know whatever happened. Most people were like trying to convince you to trade your vehicle that if it had a problem, get something else. Hey, we got this. We got
we
this
can't
Lincoln
fix
on the
that.
lot.
How about this?
Exactly. So that happened quite a bit, but yeah, they're fun.
Well, so one more before you pop the usual 3. Who do you respect in this industry, whether it's locally or abroad, internationally?
Who or what?
Who
do I respect? Any builders, anybody who's doing this stuff, anybody who's doing it on the transmission side of things, but anybody who's doing the performance stuff, anybody it could be somebody in the garage, it could be a big business, a big industry. Let's see. I mean, like even like a personal, I wouldn't say coach, but a guy who knows a lot what they're doing. Hutch's Transmission in Canada runs the Yellow Bullet forum online for drag racing and high performance stuff. But he's the most intelligent person I've ever met for transmission stuff. The dude, he knows everything, and he's a really good resource for information or building a 3,000 horsepower PowerGlide or something. I haven't seen him. I used to go to, when we were at PRI, I used to go to the TSI dinner party kind of thing, and it was for that 1 year, it was John Kilgore. He's the guy who pretty much invented the Turbo 400 performance world of it. Like that Sonax drum module they just came out with. He did that 25, 30 years ago, and making a Turbo 400 work better. he was at the table. It was Chris from CK Performance. It was John Hutchinson and Joel from Joel's on Joy. Joel, they're all in Michigan, but or he's in Michigan. He built all the transmissions, the C4s, the PowerGlides, the C2s. He had the contract for all the drag packs, the Mopar scat pack, it's the drag car they call it.
Yeah, I'm blank. I think it was a drag pack. I'm blanking on the name. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And then the Copo Camaro. His shop, Joel's on Joy, had the contract to build all their transmissions.
Really?
For their race cars. So I'm at the table, just a fly on the wall. We're at the dinner table, just hanging out in the same room as these guys, and they're legends. They've been doing it. They're pioneers. They've been doing it for 40 plus years.
Yeah.
So anybody, like you say, great motivators, stuff like that, or great resources and stuff. But there's a lot of people in this industry who are really doing it well.
Okay.
So, but anybody who, from the performance side of things, the shops, the local tuners, and I build transmissions for a lot of shops and a lot of people, and having the access that they do to be able to do on the forefront of the installations, the tuning, the driving, all that stuff to make these things actually work. Anybody who's doing that stuff, they're great resources. So, and the performance side of it, I know that the government's trying to shut a lot of it down too, but and the racing side of it, there's still many stuff years to go on anything technologically advanced stuff, but it's not going to go away. If we're still using PowerGlide stuff 60 years later, it's probably not going to go anywhere. And when the aftermarket world starts creating cases and parts and stuff to continue that, it's here to stay. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people who are really making things happen too in the industry, and they're making advancements, and it's also ultimately driven by the EPA stuff too. But at the same time, it's also given us high performance transmissions at some point. So.
Okay. Well, sweet. On that note, Dan.
That note, what?
You want to pop to usual 3?
Yeah, I was waiting for that part of the question.
Yeah, okay.
So at the end of every episode, we like to ask our guests to pick 3 cars. I need a track car, a daily driver, and a show car. You have an unlimited budget. You can swap whatever you want. You can put a TH400 in anything you want. What are you picking?
God, can we change like track car to strip car?
Any kind of track.
All right.
That's a track.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like an autocross or road course guy, but Fox body. I kind of have what I want. With the Fox body there. So eventually we'll get. I want to do a low 4-second pass in the 8th mile.
Okay.
Pretty simple, or even like the Thunderbird. The big block is for that. So kind of same thing. Kind of working on what I want in the first place. But my the loser cruiser right out there, the Crown Vic. Perfect daily driver.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't want any complicated stuff. Just AM, FM radio, heat, AC. That's it. Nothing too fancy.
My Crown Vic or my town car has been my first Panther car, and I absolutely love that car.
Yeah.
It does everything like you said. What you need it to do. It's got plenty of power to it.
Just does it.
Yeah.
It's a good, reliable. If the cops use it, taxi services use it for decades. Yep. It's been around forever. Unfortunately, it's kind of a cheap piece of shit. I mean, the car is kind of it's not very classy.
No.
But the blend door motor goes out all the time, and it's got just AM, FM, just basic bench seats, leather, whatever. But they're not the no frills kind of a car, but great daily driver. I prefer rear-wheel drive myself, but a track car. Let's see, or the show car. Only I don't really have any preferences, only because I've got an uncle. He's really had several Willys vehicles. I never knew what a 41 Willys was until he's had a couple of them.
Yeah.
And it's just in particular, it's a cool looking car. It's nostalgic, and I'd probably stay, probably a Willys for a show car.
Okay.
Nothing like I say. I'm not sure. There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
There's a ton of them. But
all of those picks are very simple.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's by concept alone,
Yep.
just bold and just straight to the point.
So when you say Fox, are we 4i notch particularly, or what? Like you got over there?
Yeah, I've always been a notch guy. My grandpa ordered that car, brand new in '82.
Oh, really?
Yep. So, unfortunately, it was winter driven, but that's always been my thing. Is that I've loved notches. I've always loved like notch back, but. Yeah, particularly like a 4i, I like because that's a 82, 4i. So I do like the 4i.
unfortunately, there's not a lot to do aerodynamically until you put like plastic over the headlights and everything. But nobody makes a really good front end for it. I wish Shonak
What
would
about
make
doing
something.
like the pace car front end on that one? Have you?
No.
We're off on a Ford tangent. Sorry.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, not.
I'll throw you in the river for it.
It's right there. I don't know. I kind of like to keep it the way it was. If I was going to do something and put like an outlaw bumper or something on it, throw some Shonak stuff on it, it would probably be obviously an 86 up or whatever it is because all the parts fit. Nobody really makes anything for that. It's just kind of unfortunate, but I'm going to keep it the way it is. I want to leave it alone. If I put a chin spoiler on it, there was I think it's either a Capri, I forget what it is, but there's a small little chin spoiler that they put underneath the car, underneath the bumper. I would rather have over what it has. But I like the scoop on the front of the hood, on the top of it. I'm gonna leave that alone. It's non-functional. You could probably turn it functional, but I just like the way the car looks the way it is. Eventually put like a 17-inch wing on it, strutless wing, but nothing to light the world on fire. My kid was welding the sheet metal in it last night. It's a project car, so that was this winter's project, but so it's just something to tinker with and get running. We want to keep it running. Just leave it that way. So it drove in here in the fall, sold the engine, transmission, all the stuff that was in it, and now we're on to doing something better. So
sweet.
Upgrades, your basic stuff. But just, I'd like to see the thing slammed, big tires in the back and just slammed. And I like a Fox body that looks low on the ground, low and mean, like the Thunderbird. I'd probably lower that car like 4 inches. Stuff's a 315, I can almost get it up to the wheel or the lip of the wheel itself.
Oh, really?
So it's a back half car. So the world is limitless when you back half a car and do all the stuff to the front. So that car looks.
Is the
nice
car
and
here?
It's in my other garage, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's covered up. Half the interior is sitting on top of it, but it's
I call them shelves.
Yeah, exactly.
Storage cars. Yeah.
So no, it's just in cold storage over there, just waiting its turn again.
Yeah.
So I should have put the engine in there before I put it down. I'm tripping over that thing, but either way, fun stuff to deal with.
Well, sweet. Cool. Where can people find you? Do you want people to find you?
I don't build everything. I only build certain things, and if there's a right application, I'll build it. Sometimes I'll do favors for manuals, depends on who's asking, but just depends on what it is. I'm busy enough. I'm 3 months out to begin with for most year round. So there's a lot of times there's a lot of stuff I simply can't even do. Somebody has constraints. I need it done in 3 weeks. I call somebody else, but I have a Facebook page, and it's more or less just so people can see what these things look like. I don't advertise, but it's there just so somebody wants to see a pro mod transmission build or whatever it is. There it is, but it's on Facebook. Performance Drivetrain Solutions. I believe Carrie set it up for me because one of the cars that went down to PRI, one of the Dre Week guys, Josh Norris, he built his transmission, and he was going down to PRI at the Hillborn injection booth. So Carrie whipped up some decals for me, and I really I'm not on the forefront of social media. I'm not really, I'm just a guy in a garage whipping these high powered transmissions up.
Well, to your point, it's like, you don't have much of a Facebook presence or profile. Like, you're not involved when I have to start calling around. I'm like, all right. So I call, I reached out to 2 or 3 different people. I saw who liked your page. I'm like, all right, yep, okay, I'm piecing it together. I'm like, all right, cool, we'll do it,
Yeah.
So, but dude, some of the best guys are just completely off the radar too.
Yes.
It is crazy.
There's a lot of times, I call on people for doing stuff left and right, and machining the part or having, for whatever instance, it doesn't matter. And some of these guys, I'm like, my uncle is heavily involved in the racing industry. So some of the circle track stuff, dirt car. Okay. He's over south of Baldwin, I guess. And so he builds his own chassis, does everything, cradle to grave and stuff. And so he knows people in the area. And when I needed roll cage tubing for my Thunderbird 10 years ago, I ordered it through him or bought it through him. He says, call these people, SW, I think it was is it SW Racecars? But anyways, they're maybe SSR Racecars. They're over down in like Emerald, Wisconsin. Maybe it's Spring Valley. Okay. I had no idea this place was, it was in a barn. It's just a barn. And I had no idea this place was there. But I walked in, there's marble floor, there's tile, everywhere. There's trophies everywhere. Walk in, there's nobody up there. I walked in the back, I see there's yellow curtains. There's probably 30 cars. Chassis, curtains all the way around, being in fabrication. It's just circle track cars. And I was like, I would never have guessed it from the street, and you find these local places, mom and pop stops everywhere, and it's cool. The community is such a small world. It's a very small world. I built transmissions for people who've, even just last week, I've known this guy's dad for he's passed away. He was 94. He passed away in 2014, but I used to fly RC airplanes with this guy, and this guy comes over. This is the second transmission I built for him from over here. I couldn't believe it when he said what his last name was. And he just identified himself as Camaro Jeff the whole time. So I write down just Camaro Jeff. Everyone knows him. He's a local legend. He was racing at Red Rock, since the 80s. Been around forever. And his dad, I used to fly RC airplanes with him. He was old back then, and wow, I couldn't believe it that's Jeff's dad. So it's come such small world so many times. But transmissions that come back to me from people that bought it from somebody else, I didn't even build it for, but it still comes back to me. That happened once 10 years ago. Built a 1,500 horsepower transmission for a guy, for a lady, and he had he apparently sold it. But some guy he wanted me to do some F-body stuff, and did the suspension, built a 9-inch, and did the installation, put the 480 in the car and everything. Some catfish, like an 03 or something, maybe Camaro. I forget what it is, but. So I do all this stuff, and so he says, "Oh yeah, I quoted him for this and that," and then he says, "Oh, I found a 4L80. I'll bring it to you, and I want to put a trans brake in it. I want to powder coat it, and it's pretty much it." Okay, cool, bring it over. So I bring it, all the stuff, his car and everything, and so I come to find out that it was a transmission I already built, but the guy he bought it from wasn't the guy I built it for. So it's already gone through 3 hands at least, unused, never even used once. So it never had oil in it, just like the day I built it. I take it all apart, like. There's one of mine, and then
how do you know one's yours? Do you mark them somehow?
Yeah.
Or? Yeah. Okay.
I know. So they're indicated. Everything I build is blueprinted. It's exactly how I want it. And so 3,000 horsepower car brings a transmission back to me, 80 passes later. When I take it apart and I see where the specs are, where the clutch clearances are, see how much wear is on it. Every time I go into something, I'm making improvements on something. Nobody's taking power away. We're always adding. Everyone's adding more power every year, so we have to increase this and that and this and that. So every time I go into one, that's a refresh. I did, like I say, 45 passes maybe ago. Every year, I'd probably do 30 of them a year. It's just a refresh. I just did last year, and then we're maximizing this or changing that and altering this, and we're trying to go faster and faster and faster. Every shift has got to get, try to get quicker and stuff and work better. So there's always something to do, but yeah, like I say, it's come full circle so many times. It's just all of a sudden, it's when I already did, and dude didn't even know it was me. I had no idea until I took it apart, so. I do, like I said, I kind of gave it up 5 or 6 years ago. I used to scribe into things, whose it was or what number it is. I used to have an identifier for it, and I just give it up. I know what they are anymore. I know what they are, so yeah, they're fun.
Well, sweet. Dan?
You can find us at Gunna Garage.
How's that snowmobile content going?
It sucks.
You started a new channel or something?
No, well, I have one that we've been trying to do, but it's not great.
We don't have any winter.
I know.
Yeah,
no.
He's like, we'll try to this year.
I do a lot of snowmobiling stuff in the wintertime too, but and I was trying to get some content, but I got to go out one weekend this year, put 200 miles on, and put the sled away. West? I haven't yet. I want to. Okay. I'm not a mountain rider. I'm too old and fat to do that shit. Plus, I ride Yamahas. They're heavy.
Power of those things nowadays.
Yeah, no, it's my sled. I have a Sidewinder, which is great. It's a lot of power, but I trail ride in Wisconsin. We bar hop and hang out. Yeah. I'll go out west to trail ride though. Sure. But I've heard the Yellowstone they open the park up to snowmobile riding in the wintertime. So they don't pave the roads and stuff. Yeah. So I've heard that's really cool.
There's so many trails out there, all the walking paths and everything. I mean, there's probably some snowshoers and stuff out there, but just mind them. But it'd be really cool. I never knew they did that. Mm-hmm. We had snowmobiles back, I was 13, 15 and stuff, but and we never went out west or anything. But I got, many people who do, but that'd be a lot of fun. I never knew that they opened up Yellowstone for that.
Yeah. That's what I've heard. I have not, cannot confirm or deny at this point. Fun. But.
Yeah, we don't get snow to even justify owning the things.
Yeah, a guy who's got 10 of them at his shop up north. Yeah.
No, it'd be fun, but it's just one of those seasonal toys. I've had race quads, I've had dirt bikes growing up, and it's just unless you're totally dedicated with it and you're out racing the things, going to the motocross track and hitting the triples, and otherwise it's hard to own. Just to own it, but. Yeah, no, it'd be a lot of fun. I wouldn't mind having like a hopped up race sled and just balls to the wall, just climbing a hill, or mountain. But you do that once a year, and that's kind of
Yeah.
what it's it. You're
It's
rebuilding
an
the sled
expensive
again.
hobby for how often you can do it, but
Yeah.
so is race car shit. You
Yeah,
can
no,
only do that
exactly.
half the year. So
Yep. No, exactly. And if you need to justify another expense or something, I mean,
Yeah.
I'd rather do something local personally. Instead of driving out 1,000 miles west and back just to have a broken sled again. I've seen it. I've seen friends do that all the time.
well, that's why I ride Yamaha.
Bring 3 because one might last. But yeah, whatever. It's something to throw money and time at. So it's fun.
I like stuff that works. Fords and Yamahas, I'm fine with.
Yeah. No, that was my race quad too. I like my 450, my YFC 450. That's a fun bike.
Yeah.
4-wheeler, but no, I like snowmobile. There's a guy I built the transmission for at Axtall's garden.
Yep. I know what you're talking about.
Brian, I built did a lot of work to his Corvette, put a 700 R4. He had a big block in it, 454, one of Big Block Sean's engines, and then I built a 700 R4 for it. But he was a huge mountain guy, sled mountain guy. Bought a brand new, I think it's an Apex. This must have been like 2012 or something, 2011. Bought a brand new Apex, and he already had like 30 grand worth of parts to throw at it. It was in the back of a truck. He's just checking on the build of the car once, and just going to go home, rip the whole brand new sled apart. Should have just kept bought a crate. I mean, I don't know why you would have put it together just to take it back apart again, but he bought a brand new sled, and he was going through that Yamaha Apex. But
My wife rides an Apex. That's one of Yamaha's best sleds they ever
Is
made.
it? Yeah,
it's
okay.
great. It has the Yamaha R1 street bike motor in it.
it's a four-cylinder.
four-cylinder,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, he said something about 145 cc or whatever, or 145 cubic inch. I
Yeah, I
forget
can't remember what it
size.
is, but I mean, they'll go 30, 40,000 miles without any kind of
Really?
hiccup.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. My Mac Tool guy, he had his wife, I think, had an Apex too. There's a Phaser too.
Phaser, yeah, that's the.
But there's a 2-stroke. that
The
four-stroke?
older phasers were. The newer
Okay.
ones, there's like a 500 4-stroke version too.
Okay, so I think it was a 4-stroke, as far as I know, but it was a Phaser, and it was years ago. They used to go up northern in the UP. They used to go out to Idaho and stuff, and so he had, I forget what he had, but yeah, his wife, it was a Yamaha too, and then he sold his because how reliable hers was.
Yeah.
So he got himself a Yamaha too, but. Yeah, it can be good stuff. And bikes, I guess, are really good. My dad's got a Yamaha. My mom's got a Yamaha bike. So
No, that's the one I got into Harleys. Those don't run the well all the time. I don't know. They've got a lot of hype, but it's not. I would go back and get a Yamaha V-Star or something like that actually goes.
runs.
But
Metric Cruisers, I guess, are really good too. So I don't know. Because I don't. Once I sold, it was an 05 YFC 450, and it was the last fun toy I had, minus all the airplanes and stuff and all the other stuff. But for seasonal hobbies and stuff, I mean, that was a fun bike. But I did my research on it. I chose Yamaha. My last dirt bike was a Yamaha too. But the Hondas are good.
Hondas, you can't balk at that either.
No. So as much as a domestic guy as I am, but you can't argue it. And,
No.
there's still the Japanese bikes are still really good. So yep.
Sorry, we went off on a side tangent there,
We're about to start ready to start talking about Ford stuff,
No, I'm a four wheels guy. Anything besides that, I don't understand.
Got skiing, track.
Yeah, but perfect. Well, I'm glad we made this happen. Thanks for coming on,
thank
Adam. We will definitely do a round 2 at some point. There's a lot more to learn.
Yeah, no, we could do a seminar, taking one apart, going back together.
Yeah, there's definitely more to do. So, well, I'm glad we made this happen. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Dan, thanks for existing, and we'll see y'all next time.
Thank you.
Thanks again for watching the show, guys. Be sure to go into the description down below and check out all of our sponsors. They are what make this show possible. It allows us to travel the country and talk to some really cool guests. So be sure to check them out, support them just like you support us, and see y'all next time.